When this guy wakes up in his dorm room, he's shocked to realize he's traveled back in time. Chenbai checks the date and finds he has 10 days before the apocalypse hits in full force. So without wasting any time, he heads straight to the hospital. According to the news, there's already a first patient with an unknown virus that's driving people crazy. He sneaks past the doctors and enters a dark room where a zombie lies tightly bound. Chenbai takes out a syringe, draws infected blood directly from the zombie, and immediately injects it into his arm. Incredible pain pierces his body, and all his veins bulge. The pain is so intense he can't stay on his feet and collapses. But he uses all his strength to resist becoming a zombie. He can't let the virus win. In his past life, he was a weakling forced to serve the goddess of darkness. He carried out hundreds of missions for her, but she betrayed him and decided to discard him like useless trash, simply because he was insignificant. This time, everything will be different. When he finally manages to stand up, he looks just like a zombie and can barely walk properly. Even the people around him start to fear him, but just a few hours later, it all disappears. And thanks to the zombie virus, Chenbai awakens his abilities before anyone else. What's more, he gains one of the most unique and powerful classes possible, Virus Monarch. Now he can absorb and use viruses to become stronger. All he needs to do now is find and absorb as many of them as possible. The hospital is obviously the best place to find viruses. He wants to return to the hospital. However, he sees everyone escaping in panic as zombies have emerged. From his previous life, he remembers the sealed hospital as one of the 3 events that happened in Jiangcheng City before the trial came. He figures out that this is that sealed hospital as he sees a zombie come out. He grabs him by his face to absorb all he can. He gains virus points usable for strengthening his abilities. Meanwhile, on the 4th floor of the hospital, we see a scene of 2 Magares of the medical staff locking themselves in a bathroom stall while zombies are hunting for them. One of the doctors is certain that these are his last moments. He inappropriately starts touching the girl hiding with him to enjoy his final moments. Just then, a zombie breaks into the stall. As a result, the doctor uses his fellow nurse as a shield against the zombies and runs towards the window and jumps from the 4th floor to the ground, dying straight away as Chenbai watches on. Maybe death is far more appealing than to be the walking dead. Even the girl has been bitten by the zombie, turning into one herself. All Chenbai does is absorb that virus with an idea in his mind. He hopes to absorb all the zombiness out of the girl so that she can show him the way into the hospital. The nurse is told what happened, and she wants to thank Chenbai, but Chenbai doesn't want to thank you. He wants her help. She obliges. He asks her to guide him to the laboratory where most of the viruses are. The girl is confused about what Chenbai wants to do with the viruses, and soon she sees his veins pop up as he puts his hand into the stored virus samples. With all the zombie and the laboratory sample absorptions, he now has the ancestor virus, dark light virus, Tiki virus, T virus, and Coxy virus in his collection. Chenbai is pleased to see the dark light virus in his repertoire. The zombie virus evolves into the dark virus. Chenbai's strength is boosted by 200%. The dark light virus's speciality is to devour and evolve. Suddenly, a zombie tries to jump on them, and he picks him up with his bare hands, already demonstrating how his strength has been boosted, and absorbs his virus. However, instead of only absorbing, he uses his devouring ability on the zombie, making him vanish into the darkness emerging from his hands. The girl, looking at this, has a horrified look on her face. However, she has full trust in him because he saved her and wants to keep his secret. She introduces herself as Su Xin. Before they can talk much, they hear the authorities arrive. Chenbai decides they should move straight to the roof and escape from there. Su Xin believes that they are not zombies and they can escape directly, but the quarantine procedure will steal days away from Chenbai that he can use to improve his skills, something he doesn't want to risk. However, intercepting them is a larger, crazier zombie. Chenbai is interested to see how a mutant is present in this hospital. They have quite a fight. However, the mutant is much stronger than the other zombies. Chenbai even absorbs some other powers from some bodies and throws them into one concentrated blow. However, it doesn't leave much of an effect. Soon, Su Xin throws him an emergency axe that she gets from the facility. Despite using it, the mutant throws Chenbai into the wall, meaning to tear him apart. However, Chenbai has a smile on his face as he attempts that. Once the mutant has broken into the tissue, large tentacles coming out of Chenbai grab hold of the mutant, and the black light virus consumes him entirely. After devouring the 2nd stage zombie, the black light virus transformation is in progress, until Chenbai gets the bone claws from the zombie ability. However, all of this altercation at the end of the day leaves them face to face with the authorities. who can't let humans or zombies alike walk free from this hospital. They recognize Su Xin and Chen Bai as fleeing people and ask them to raise their hands. Chen Bai, realizing that they are in a countdown to open fire, grabs Su Xin and they move towards the stairs, even though Chen Bai gets shot in the escape. He promptly asks Su Xin for her address and quickly jumps off the building, scaring her to a pulp. In an instant, though, they are outside Su Xin's apartment. She offers him to use her restroom and help himself handle the bullet wound. However, his bullet wounds have already started to heal. Moments later, Chen Bai has his shirt off, and Su Xin points out that Chen Bai still has scratches on his body. He hasn't fully recovered yet. However, he says that all he needs is something to eat and drink, which will fix him up. He jokingly asks her if she would like to present herself to be eaten, to get his wounds healed. She counters saying that if he wanted to eat her, he could have eaten her before. However, he didn't find the environment earlier. This only grows them closer as they share a passionate kiss. Soon we hear Chen Bai's phone buzzing. His DMs are flooded with people asking him if he's alright since he went to the Jiancheng hospital. The fact that Song Ziqiang had Su Xin approach Chen Bai means she clearly knows something. That alone makes Chen Bai curious enough to want an audience with Song Ziqiang. Song Ziqiang, in his previous life, was a woman who had risen from rags to riches. Her web of legal and illegal ventures had made her a known name. After the trial began, she awakened an A-level talent and rapidly climbed the ranks. Back in the present, Chen Bai steps out of a car, lost in thought, reflecting on how much he used to admire Song Ziqiang in his previous life. But this time, things would be different. She would admire and join him instead. Song Ziqiang is introduced to Chen Bai by one of her subordinates. She tells him she was worried after losing contact with him. There's plenty they could say to each other, but Chen Bai cuts straight to the point. He asks her not to waste time either. Song Ziqiang smiles and boldly suggests he could become her son-in-law if he wanted to. She follows this up by referencing the stunts he pulled at the hospital. Chen Bai is immediately intrigued. He had destroyed the surveillance and power systems, yet she seems to know about things that no one should. It becomes clear that Song Ziqiang is not someone to underestimate. She explains that she could have tracked him from the hospital lobby to the monitoring room anyway. However, someone had been stuck in Ward 323 due to the zombie outbreak, and suddenly she had initially called on herself for Song Ziqiang's help. Moments later, though, she reported that someone incredibly powerful had wiped out the zombies. A video was even sent to Song Ziqiang, showing young Chen Bai in action. She also reveals she had another source at the hospital, Liu Feng, the same man who had tried to assault Su Xin and then used her as a shield against the zombies before jumping out the window. Chen Bai and Su Xin had assumed Liu Feng had died, as he remembers from a flashback of Su Xin saying that to Chen Bai during the night they spent together. Su Xin was glad that harasser died. The story returns to the elevator, where Song Ziqiang, Chen Bai, and one of her close female subordinates, Ling Shuang, are riding up together. Song Ziqiang repeats her offer. If not her son-in-law, Song Ziqiang wants Chen Bai to become one of her people, to work under her. Chen Bai, however, plays it far dirty, even leading Song Ziqiang onto much intimate intentions. Chen Bai coolly follows that she doesn't know him as well as she thinks. Having a video doesn't give her the full picture. As they reach the top floor, Chen Bai suddenly reveals his zombie virus claws. Instinctively, Song Ziqiang's subordinate, Ling Shuang, moves to protect her, but Chen Bai doesn't attack. Song Ziqiang is caught off guard, and at first thinks he's making an indecent proposal. But Chen Bai clarifies, all he wants is her help. She admits that convincing her isn't easy, but Chen Bai leans in, promising he knows a lot, and that knowledge will only help the both of them grow stronger the closer they work together. He begins to tell her about the true nature of the apocalypse. Intrigued, Song Ziqiang agrees to help him, on the condition that he helps her in return. And just then, gunshots echo in the background. Commander Huang of the military had sent Captain Zhao to negotiate with Song Ziqiang. The zombies were being contained in sub-zero temperatures at Song Ziqiang's refrigerated storage facility, while the rescued survivors were being isolated there as well. But now, the zombies have somehow made their way outside, confusing Song Ziqiang, as the extreme cold should have kept them restrained. However, Chen remembers zombies differently. In his past life, he learned that these monsters mutate in response to extreme conditions. That means they're now dealing with mutated zombies. We see on the field a massive, grotesque creature, its body covered with multiple face-like features, completely unfazed by the military's firepower. Zhao quickly realizes the situation and calls for a grenade to be thrown into the creature's mouth. When that fails, he begins formulating a new strategy, organize into teams and change their battle approach. However, before they can act, Song Ziqiang stops him. She tells him not to waste their ammunition, or the lives of his men, on something their tactics can't even dent. Instead, she orders him to prioritize protecting her warehouse staff and buying time. The problem is that zombies are incredibly fast. Zhao notes that retreating without casualties would be nearly impossible. But Song Zikyong has a card up her sleeve. She tells Zhao to trust her plan and stop questioning it, reminding him that she's the one in charge. Just then, Chen Bai enters the battlefield. He strikes the monster with a seemingly minor attack, but even that sends a shock up his arm. It could have been torn off if he hadn't been cautious. He jumps into combat using his enhanced abilities, though his attacks don't cause much damage. Still, the sheer mass of the creature moving around is gradually wearing it down. Realizing he needs a boost, Chen Bai scans his surroundings and spots some frozen beef. He activates his Blacklight Evolution ability to absorb it, slightly increasing his strength and endurance. The monster is trying to rejuvenate as well, but even that is tiring it down. Noticing the monster's exhaustion, Chen Bai makes a few calculated moves before unleashing his first major punch of the battle. Zhao is stunned. He turns to Song Zikyong and admits that he's as afraid of Chen Bai going berserk as he's weary of the monster unleashing itself. Chen Bai basically has a monster vibe himself. However, Song Zikyong calmly replies that she sees Chen Bai more as a partner. Chen Bai then tears into the mutant zombie, literally ripping its limbs apart, and triggers an evolutionary response mid-battle. Zhao watches in disbelief. It's just two unrestrainable mutants clashing, and he can't see a clear outcome. He contacts military command, asking how far away the reinforcements are. By now, the zombie, though eager to recover, is far too fatigued. Its body is already undergoing blacklight evolution. Song Zikyong, confident in what's to come, nudges Zhao and tells him not to worry. Chen Bai will handle the rest. Just 10 minutes later, guns are pointed at our hero, with the captain giving his men a heads up to be ready to fire. However, Song Zikyong reminds him of the promise he made that he would not shoot if Chen Bai doesn't attack first. Meanwhile, Chen Bai is enjoying his system prompt that reveals to him that he has taken down a rare beast, a mountain flesh zombie, and obtained the Flesh Mountain's powers. His achievements also include the virus injection skill being unlocked. He can now, although, make a giant mountain zombie fist, but there is no one to test it on. What he thinks of as the bigger gain of the day is the Flesh Mountain core that he can use to create an infinitely large wall between him and an adversary, only if he can find a way to control it first. One of its features is that it can also be used to craft other equipment. He even considers feeding it more to grow another Flesh Mountain to test its strength. However, before he can do it, someone calls his name from behind, and we learn about Lu Li. Lu Li is a journalist who was at the hospital the day the attack happened and was the one who filmed his video. Chen Bai already knows of Lu Li as she comes in and thanks him for saving her life twice this time. She was under attack at the warehouse this time around as well. Lu Li, being a journalist, has also recorded this altercation with the giant zombie. However, she is ready to delete it if Chen Bai wants, although Chen Bai wants her to keep it for another day and another use. Soon after, Zhao addresses his own concern, as he also calls Chen Bai and asks him to explain much of what happened, as that is what Commander Huang wants. Hearing that name, Chen Bai instantly reminisces him from his past life. He was simply a brute to those who were weaker and had awakened their traits, treating them like the worst of animals. He used the motivation of patriotism within the masses to get a pass. However, soon after, it was just down to starvation and beatdowns for no reason. Chen Bai was also a part of this inhumane treatment. If anyone tried to raise their voice, they were considered traitors and charged with treason. Thus, Chen Bai had to escape Jiancheng altogether. Just for a second, he asks Song Zikyong if he needs to explain himself to the likes of Commander Zhao. However, she doesn't think it's necessary. Chen Bai in his mind agrees, as it's not even time for anyone to know anything about the trial yet. Zhao is a bit put off by this and asks them to respect their duty as a citizen. Song Zikyong is as cocky as they are in that powerful position. She doesn't care about duty, reminding Zhao that he is not an official, just a platoon leader. She threatens him straightforwardly, even cursing at him and telling him that Huang can come and see her himself if he wants to know anything. As the commander is being talked to in that tone, another one of Zhao's subordinates comes to him, telling him that the isolated personnel are causing trouble. Something clicks in Chen Bai, and he knows that this has to be Liu Feng. Chen Bai wants to confirm his suspicions, and it turns out that it truly is Liu Feng. Chen Bai wants to meet him if possible. Moments later, Liu Feng is shown out, as he boasts about how his dad finally called for him as he is the vice president of the first Liu Feng Huinong Hospital. Suddenly, Chen Bai taps at his shoulder to inject a zombie virus as a test of how the ability works, introducing himself as a messenger for someone Liu Feng had tried to abuse. He mentions Su Xin, who told him that she wants Liu Feng dead because he tried to violate her and throw her straight for a zombie to feast. Liu Feng cannot believe that Su Xin is alive, and furthermore, that she's sharing a bed with this guy. Even thinking of that enrages him. However, Chen Bai takes 2 steps back to see the show happen on its own, as he wants everyone to back off a little bit as Liu Feng's losing it, indicating that he's about to become a zombie. Liu Feng wants to punch our boy Chen Bai, but the zombiness kicks in inside him. Even before Liu Feng can land a blow or transform properly, Chen Bai uses his mountain flesh fist to incapacitate him. Chen Bai finds out that the punch is far more powerful than he first anticipated. With that being taken care of, he doesn't think he needs to stay in Captain Zhao's vicinity, and thinks it's adequate to only let Song Ziqiang know that he's leaving. Song Ziqiang, however, has an offer to make. She thinks that being just partners isn't enough, that it isn't as valuable as being something more, indicating that she wants to get 1 step closer to Chen Bai. As Miss Song Ziqiang, Leng Shuang, and Chen Bai are returning, Song Ziqiang invites Chen Bai to her private villa. He agrees, on the condition that she won't disturb him at all until they arrive. What he wants to do in the meantime is check his inventory for the rewards he received after defeating Big Mountain Meat. The Rampage Bloodlust ability increases all attributes 3-fold each time it's used, but it comes with a major drawback. For a full day afterward, all stats are decreased by 50% until the next cycle. This trade-off doesn't seem worth it to Chen Bai. He's seen people before who bulk up in strength but lose flexibility and control. However, alongside this, he has received 2 skill books. Now, he feels it's time to shift his focus toward building a faction, gathering pioneers who can stand with him from the beginning. He knows that the bonds formed long after a trial ends often become tangled and messy. The initial network, the early relationships, that's where real strength lies. It turns out Chen Bai has exactly 6 coins, the exact amount required to introduce a chat group. He proceeds to create one. He can't think of a name. If he doesn't come up with one quickly, the system will assign it a serial number by default. Soon enough, we see the message. Chat Group 001 has been formed. At this point, Chen Bai starts envisioning the rebuilding of White Emperor City in a dream, making it his divine kingdom. He imagines the riches, the power, and what he would bestow, making her his lowliest dog beneath her own feet. 3 hours later, Chen Bai and the others arrive at Song Ziqiang's villa. It seems Chen Bai has already briefed Song Ziqiang on the more important matters and believes that's all she needs to know. She lets out a sigh, indicating that this much is enough for someone like her to start making gains. However, she expresses her desire to become Chen Bai's person and asks how she can achieve that. Chen Bai doesn't want useless people. The first thing on his list is abilities, followed by loyalty, much like that of a loyal dog. She's fine with loyalty and believes she can gain abilities as well. She already has influence, status, riches, and commands respect in Jian Chang. Chen Bai smiles and nods, revealing that in the new world, all rules and regulations are going to be flipped on their heads. Anyone's current status won't matter. All her current power will do is make her a better slave in the post-trial era. She thinks about the difference, being his loyal dog now, or his slave later. Chen Bai is precise with his words. He's offering her a platform to assert her dominance without letting his own insecurities weigh her down. Acknowledging this, she literally drops to her knees, accepting him as her master. Just seeing her like that makes it all the more exciting. For someone like her, loyalty means something real. He closes in to feel her charm and gives her the first task. Soon, Leng Shuang receives a message. She's to make a newly sent video and forward it to someone who understands social media well enough to keep the post relevant for long periods. It should be targeted at the pioneers and labeled with the name of the pioneer White Emperor. She relays this message to Lu Li and offers to take her home. Lu Li doesn't know how she's not as scared as she used to be around zombies. Maybe it's because she knows Chen Bai has her back now. Back with Chen Bai, he sees Song Ziqiang's phone ringing. It's her daughter, Song Ge, asking about the situation at home. Chen Bai answers and tells her that her mother is busy and wants her home immediately. She's confused as to why Chen Bai picked up the phone, and even more upset that he ignored her messages. But before she can finish, he hangs up, infuriating her. Meanwhile, Song Ziqiang makes a request for her new master to protect her daughter. He reminds her that if she's good at her job, he'll make sure her daughter doesn't become a monster when the trial begins. The scene shifts to Song Ge and Song Ziqiang in the same car. The mother explains everything, but Song Ge doesn't believe her. Regardless, Song Ziqiang tells her to just watch silently when they get out of the car. Meanwhile, Chen Bai and Ling Shuang are searching for zombie hubs. Ling Shuang informs him that the only spot she found was the casino they're standing outside of. It's an underground casino with a house on top. All of the Magares, gamblers, and house owners are now believed to be zombies, up to 160 of them. Chen Bai thinks to himself that this might be the zombie slaughter event, but unlike the hospital and Meat Mountain incidents, which happened in broad daylight, this one is far from public eyes. That makes it unlikely to be the third major event before the trial. Soon, Song Ziqiang shows up, realizing that Chen Bai is the type to go after every single zombie. While the military only wants 10 or 15, Chen Bai is going for the whole bunch. He knocks very gently to signal those inside to open the door. They burst it open, and a horde of zombies rushes straight for him. However, we soon witness the incredible speed of Chen Bai as he stands atop a mountain of zombies, absorbing their zombiness right out of them. Despite initially aiming for 160, it turns out he has already collected 500 samples of zombie-class viruses. He can now even collect zombie serum by exchanging zombie viruses through something called the talent tree, specifically the zombie virus entry. This solves a long-standing problem for many, especially new awakeners, as zombie viruses are always an issue. He now has virus points and uses 300 of them to acquire the serum. Having obtained this rare item, he turns to Song Ziqiang and reminds her of what he had told her earlier, about only fighting zombies with a weapon in order to come out on top. She has a giant club bat in her hand, so Chen Bai sends a zombie her way to test her strength. Among the girls, Ling Shuang wants to go first. Rather than using weapons, she relies on her accuracy as her arsenal, taking down the zombie in a flash. Song Ziqiang goes next, connecting her bat directly to the head of one of the zombies. It actually takes her up to 10 hits to kill the zombie this time, which makes Chen Bai think. She only managed to take the zombie down because of her familiarity with the human body. But even more disappointing is the fact that Song Ge pees herself and claims she can't do it. Without giving them an analysis, he instead asks Song Ziqiang to find out why. Despite Ling Shuang's collection of information, this was the only place where zombies had accumulated. He finds it strange and asks her to look into the matter. He finally tells her that he cannot slowly train her daughter himself, and Song Ziqiang will have to arrange for Song Ge's training on her own. Although she thought he would be giving her some kind of cure to prevent Song Ge from turning into a zombie, he instead hands her the formula sheet he purchased. He tells her she can put it together herself and that it's a rare commodity. Her eyes sparkle, and she bows down to her master. He then sends her off with Ling Shuang and turns his attention to checking his social media post, thinking it might be gaining some traction by now. However, he realizes the post looks like something between the King's Bible and Gen Z yapping, and the comments reflect exactly that. Still, one of the replies stands out. The commenter claims they're not a shill, but a pioneer seeking help. It turns out not all was lost in posting that. The person, going by the name I'm Not a Shill, accidentally reveals that they are a level S mental controller, something they later regret mentioning in the messages. But the pioneering White Emperor, Chen Bai, tells him not to worry. His secret is safe with him. Realizing this is someone useful, Chen Bai tells him about a chat group, the White Emperor's chat box, and the documents available there, encouraging him to read and ask anything he wants. This person enters under the name Han Xiao. He doesn't ring any bells, but then he talks to Chen Bai about adding someone named Sui Chuan, who mentioned him while tweeting but couldn't get his attention, and so talked to Han instead, only to find out that Han knows nothing about this. Shui Chuan thus ended up ignoring Han as well. This suddenly brings a certain seriousness to Chen Bai's face. Pioneer Shui Chuan must be none other than the powerhouse Emperor-level Suicune. He quickly types in affirmation, hoping that this is the breakthrough the chat group needs. We see Song Ge on the phone with Lu Li, talking about what became of the investigation. It turns out that the lords of the Zhangcheng area are interested in collecting zombies, sending them all to the Mankai container yard near the Zhangcheng wharf. Lu Li had even sent someone inside, but the amount of time taken means they were likely caught, and it's no longer worth waiting. However, as she enters the facility, she sees the horrifying scene of her companions lying on the ground. There's someone sitting in one of the windows structured near the roof. Meanwhile, back at Song Ziqiang's place, Chen Bai is replying to some messages from an SS ranker named Liu Huai, guiding him about how those above 3 points in spirit stat are to be dealt with, considering the boy has 5 spirit. Just as he sees that message, Song Ziqiang walks in, visibly distressed about Lu Li being caught at the Mankai container yard. Chen Bai simply asks one question, whether she gave Song Ziqiang away or not. This essentially means whether their cover has been blown. Song Zikyong kneels down and vouches for Lu Li's loyalty. It all turns out that Chen Bai himself is ready to go and save Lu Li. Meanwhile, at the Mankai container yard, Lu Li is treated a bit like a guest. Although the man who has made her captive has kept her tied to the chair, it's only because of Song Zikyong and some pending decision-making. But he threatens her. If the right decision isn't made, all she'll be is his plaything. Hearing this, a wine glass falls. The man isn't too pleased. Still, he brings the wine glass to Lu Li and tells her to tell her, implying that the punishment wine might not suit her. Out of nowhere, Chen Bai is sitting just adjacent to them, making a classy entrance. He tells the man, maybe the girl doesn't like wine. His sudden presence, unnoticed until now, shocks the man. The man asks who he is. Chen Bai introduces himself as Lu Li's rescuer. This alerts the man that Chen Bai is also a pioneer, meaning he knows the terminology. Lu Li heads to the car. The man correctly deduces that Song Zikyong is already under Chen Bai's subjugation, and his plan of using Lu Li to make her a subordinate has now failed. It's revealed that the man has subjugated the lord, while Chen Bai has subjugated the queen. Only the commander remains. So the man proposes an alliance with Chen Bai to make a king, but Chen Bai bluntly refuses. He already knows that the man has been using his powers to turn normal people into zombies, which makes him undeserving of help. He's scum. The man, however, is an S-ranker. Chen Bai casually introduces himself as a triple S-ranker. The man, unfazed, boasts his talent, slaughter progression, by materializing a claw. His ability lets him permanently absorb part of his target's attributes and exponentially enhance them. Chen Bai realizes the claw is essentially a form of equipment. The man lunges at him, intending to steal his powers, but a massive meat punch from Chen Bai sends him flying. The man speculates that Chen Bai must have a shape-shifting ability, but Chen Bai can't speculate at all. He still doesn't know what the man's full capabilities are. And so, the fight resumes. It looks like a toe-to-toe battle. Chen Bai's claw and meat punch against the claws and strength of this other guy. However, he trash-talks to Chen Bai, implying Chen Bai is either not showcasing his power or he's just a really lousy and weak SSS opponent. Chen Bai hints back, saying he is using his powers without the mobster even realizing it. Just as the mobster thinks all of Chen Bai's attributes are substantially lower than his, except for his pretentiousness, the mobster suddenly starts coughing up blood. He glances at his statistics board and sees all of his stats dropping drastically, at a rate of 2 to 3 units per second. He's basically suffering from a negative buff. Chen Bai compliments him for having such a formidable physique that the virus took this long to take over. In his defense, Chen Bai says, he did warn the mobster of using his skills. Now that he's had his fun, Chen Bai begins absorbing him, warning him not to disappoint him. Sooner rather than later, only the man's claw is left on the ground. For the first time, Chen Bai has taken down an opponent of such high grade. However, he can't acquire their mastered skills. There's only a low probability of such a thing happening. He can only enhance his own abilities, and can choose to view partial memories of the victim. The attribute bonuses from the Blacklight virus have now morphed into a more active utility, becoming his base attribute bonus. In Chen Bai's mind, that's quite the feat. He checks his own stats, a 30 points increase in strength, a 20 points increase in spirit, and a 100 points regenerative boost. Meanwhile, his core statistics have also risen by 50. Although it's a bit of a letdown that he won't have many formidable foes around for a while, ordinary people with stats below 5 are now too fragile for him. Chen Bai picks up the toy the man left behind. He reflects on how blessed the guy must have been, carrying equipment, blueprints, and consumables all at once. Chen Bai figures he must have fought through mutant zombies to collect gear that even surpassed his own. The claw does have its benefits and even grants a C-grade blueprint. The equipment is Chen Bai's now, even though the lucky guy must have hustled hard to get it. He heads outside, where Song Zikyong is waiting for him, thinking all the while how far he's come, from E rank to SSS, subjugating Song Zikyong, and acquiring high-grade equipment. Waiting around for monsters before the trial will no longer benefit him, and so he decides to focus on preparing for the advent of the trial. We move forward to a scene later on at Song Zikyong's place, where he's counting down to the trial's beginning. The girls walk in, having completed all the tasks and errands assigned to them by Chen Bai. They've scouted the High Villa area, so when Doomsday arrives, they'll be ready to clear things out. Su Xin, who has also joined them, has compiled a list of the necessary resources that need to be bought. Song Zikyong is asked to have all of it placed on his desk and sends a message to the chat group, reminding the gifted pioneers that having special skills doesn't make them invincible. We then see the faces of many of the Awakeners, each counting down. We're soon down to the final 10 seconds when Chen Bai calls the girls to join him at the massive windows, to spectate as the silence is about to be shattered. In mere moments, we see buildings crumble and the moon go dark. We hear Chen Bai's voice marking the official beginning of the Blue Star Doomsday trial. We hear Chen Bai speaking as if he's addressing the 001 chat, advising them that the surviving humans will evolve, and the evolved ones will acquire innate abilities, with the potential to grow even further. But other races and beings, also brought forth by the trial, will be after the same things. The trial has brought hardship, but it's also become a proving ground. Secret realms, world rifts, and countless gifts lie in wait to be discovered. It's a dangerous opportunity for everyone. However, Chen Bai suddenly hears another sound. It's coming from the hourglass. It wants to bind. He didn't see this coming, and doesn't want the hourglass to be revealed to everyone. He quickly instructs everyone to leave the room, but as he turns around, he sees that everyone is frozen in place. He looks out the window, planes mid-crash, people mid-death, frozen in time. Suddenly, a panel appears before his eyes. The hourglass glows, its attributes now fully displayed. The hourglass of time presents the option for a soul bind. Among the attributes is a time travel skill, but it's on a 72-year cooldown, making Chen Bai realize that this is what brought him back to life. The hourglass also displays his active status and can read it aloud without altering anything. There's also a hidden skill with a 1-hour cooldown, enough to bring a smile to Chen Bai's face. Moments later, everyone unfreezes and asks Chen Bai what he was about to say. He simply tells them to go and monitor the surrounding areas. Start clearing it out first thing in the morning. The next day, the girls awaken to their individual innate abilities. All around them, almost everyone has turned into zombies. Song Zikyung activates her Amethyst Eye, an S-rank ability that allows her to transform objects into amethyst or illuminate them with amethyst energy. It boosts offense, defense, power, and mental strength. Using it, she takes down multiple zombies with ease. Her statistics remain overwhelmingly high, and the zombies are no match for the abilities they've now acquired. Similarly, we see Stella awaken as an A-grade assassin. Her breath becomes invisible and undetectable, and her agility and attack speed skyrocket. She too shows off her skills, dispatching threats with grace and precision. Meanwhile, Su Xin, who was given the serum, uses her ability to help survivors recover. It's a support-type ability, and she applies it effectively to aid the ones left standing. Seeing all this, Chen Bai is pleased with how the girls have handled things. He leaves further coordination to Laura, who is already satisfied with the prior arrangements. With that, Chen Bai prepares for a power leap and bids them goodbye. We learn that in the early stages of the trial, moving from place to place was incredibly difficult. But thanks to his remarkable speed, Chen Bai now heads toward Jiancheng City University, because in his previous life, he learned that the first sign had appeared there. He had discovered this too late back then. This time, he won't make the same mistake. He arrives at the exact spot he had been anticipating. In his mind, he's certain. This is what all evolvers need. The avatar of God has descended here. He can feel it. Just as he prepares to act, someone stops him from behind, praising him for honing such powerful abilities so early in the trial and proposing a trade. Chen Bai replies that it would be his honor. But the figure, introducing himself as a merchant, tells him no need to feel honored is needed, as all he wants to do is simple trade. Still, Chen Bai knows who this is. He's heard of the name and deeply respects the figure's generosity. This is none other than the god of trading, Lord Lotto. Seeing that this guy knows so much about him, Lord Lotto gives a meeting gift, a gold magariship card to the Goblin Chamber of Commerce. Chen Bai notices that Lord Leto is much more gullible compared to his past life, so he decides to keep flattering him. Based on that, he decides to show some of his items to him. He has the Thunderwalker's Scroll, a grade S item that manifests the power of lightning, channeling it according to the user's will. He also has the Reaper's Touch, a legendary item that can only be possessed by someone with expertise in arms. However, this is not the type of stuff Chen Bai really wanted to talk to this guy about. Chen Bai thinks of the scroll, and how in the previous life, he had gotten it from this very god. He soon admits that he cannot afford these items, which makes perfect sense for the initial days of the trial. Lotto encourages him to work hard so that he can one day afford to have such products at his disposal. Chen Bai does express how he has heard that the gods cannot interfere directly in the trial and instead need to invest in evolvers. Chen Bai claims that the god of the goblins, Lord Leto, can benefit quite a bit by investing in him. Hearing this stuns Lord Lotto, who points out that for a mere mortal human, Chen Bai seems to know way too much about the trial. Chen Bai then brings up the treasure Lotto possesses, coveted by all the gods, and suggests it would be a good investment to put in for someone like Chen Bai. Lotto doesn't want to endure a loss, even if Chen Bai is an admirer of his. Chen Bai doesn't back down. He openly shows all the skills he possesses. The Triple S ranked talent catches Lotto's attention, peculiar and impressive compared to anything he's seen before. Though intrigued, Lotto points out that he has invested in gods even below level A. Talent alone isn't the sole determinant of success. Instead, he gives Chen Bai a mission. From the god of goblins and trading, this mission is the price of ultimate investment. Lotto, acknowledging Chen Bai's potential, offers him a gold coin he can use to summon him once the mission is complete. Chen Bai requests to see the treasure first, and Lotto reveals it, a dual possession setup, where two abilities can be enhanced simultaneously. With that shown, Lord Leto takes his leave. With him gone, Chen Bai takes a look at what he'll need to do to prove himself. He must find a special copy of a secret realm within Zhangcheng University and defeat a creature of the goblin god's interest, extracting a body part as a gift for Lord Lotto. However, Chen Bai doesn't recall any realm like that in Zhangcheng University from his past life, which means it must be a deeply hidden one. Now all he has to do is speculate where it might be. Lord Lotto had a great reputation in Chen Bai's previous life, so he knows he'll keep his promise. But this task isn't something Chen Bai can exploit using past knowledge. The scene shifts to the university gymnasium, where someone has beaten up most of the guys and is now forcing them to strip and beg to be taken in as slaves until the big guy is pleased. When the students resist, he offers them a swift death instead. Even the big guy's girlfriend tries to stop him, but he violently hits her, sending her into a corner. Before things can escalate further, Chen Bai arrives. He quickly assesses the situation and asks, confirming who's responsible for the condition of the beaten students. Without hesitation, he materializes his meat punch and delivers a brutal blow to the guy as punishment. It doesn't end there as his accomplices step in, wanting a piece of Chen Bai as well. However, it becomes clear they don't possess the same level of power as the big guy Chen Bai just took out. What follows is a horrifying bloodbath, witnessed by the shocked students standing nearby. Chen Bai wants to know which one of them is associated with the medical facility. The moment he asks, everyone scatters in panic. One claims to be a civil engineering student. Another says they're studying language. Suddenly, someone nervously points toward the bully's girlfriend. No one knows why Chen Bai is really here, and everyone is desperate to avoid any reason for him to have a vendetta. The girl, terrified, begs for her life, pleading not to be killed. She claims her only crime is being an aroused lady. Chen Bai is told how she actually tried to stop her boyfriend and even helped others during the chaos. Acknowledging this, Chen Bai instructs the rest to move out, stating that the girl will stay. He then directs the group toward Dongshan Villa. The students are stunned. Zombies swarm the city and the path ahead seems suicidal. However, Chen Bai assures them that most of the zombies along the way were already taken out by him as he made way to the university. He reminds them that as survivors of the trial, they are evolvers now. If they cannot confront their fear and head out, then they will never be ready for what's coming, when zombies and monsters will multiply even more. They leave with the instruction that once they reach the villa, they are to mention Chen Bai's name, and the people there will accommodate them. Meanwhile, the girl, who also wants to leave with them, is told she must stay behind to help Chen Bai. The girl is under the impression that Chen Bai wants something far more from her. However, Chen Bai has no such intentions. He simply wants information about certain ins and outs of the medical department. Chen Bai tells her that she doesn't interest him at all. He even playfully insults her, considering where her body might have been. She angrily protests, claiming that she's had no such encounters that could tarnish her name. Her reaction brings a smile to Chen Bai's face. What Chen Bai really wants to know is the layout of the medical department. She explains that on the third floor of the research building, an area only professors can access, there are various samples and information related to bacteria and viruses. As for hidden places, the only ones she can think of are Mr. Oshi's house and the incinerator, which looks like a garage and remains largely unexplored. Soon, we see test tubes, vials, and a large-scale laboratory that Chen Bai considers a treasure. He takes hold of 5 to 6 samples, most of them flu viruses, adding to his growing collection. With so much influenza, he figures he'll need very few points to upgrade it as a skill, so he gives it a try. The result amazes him. It is W-ranged skill, and it halts all of a target's attributes, interrupting any momentum of the enemy when the skill is used. After upgrading the influenza virus, he still has many points left. Realizing that Lord Leto's trial challenge won't be simple, he decides to upgrade his skills further. his passive abilities unlock and evolve. With the blacklight virus, he can now cling to surfaces, which boosts his balance. Another upgrade enhances his concentration, improving dynamic vision and reflexes, doubling his control over all his body muscles. He tests his newly upgraded strength by hitting a wall, realizing he can crack the wall with his fist approaching from just millimeters away. This visibly scares the girl. She had been exhausted earlier, so Chen Bai had been pushing her to move. Now she realizes he must have been holding back his true power all along. Chen Bai has no further interest in lingering there. He decides to head toward Mr. Oshi's place. The building seems as though it's without electricity, which unsettles the girl. They soon come across a set of double doors. Chen Bai tells her to stay back, even though she's clearly terrified to be left alone. However, he senses a kind of portal seal. It looks like the entrance to a dungeon. As he approaches, a notification window appears, indicating that the dungeon is recommended for levels 5 to 10. He accepts and enters. If Chen Bai manages to clear the dungeon, it will become a permanent location. But if he fails to clear it within 2 days, it will vanish. It all makes sense now, why he had never heard of this hidden cold incinerator dungeon in his previous life. As he steps inside, monsters begin approaching, with his claw raised and ready to strike. Although there are 4 crazy multiple-limb creatures and zombies coming at him, Chen Bai has got the upper hand for most of the battle. The monsters do possess formidable moves, but they are too slow compared to our hero. He anticipates more. However, the thrusting doesn't get any faster for those with enhanced moves, so he simply takes them out without enjoying it any further. As he goes through the monsters, he acquires multiple grades of experience points based on which monsters he takes down. The notification window updates him as he improves his attributes, gains points, and takes down all but one monster. He calls out the monster that Lord Leto is interested in, announcing that it has taken down all its minions. Seeing that the monster is, comedically, a bit shy, he attempts to help it out himself. We see some large machinery from where a small lump of meat comes out. Although it is really small and shouldn't be of danger, Chen Bai senses it to have a transformation, and thus realizes that he should kill it much before it can transform. Chen Bai wants to use his evolved flu virus, but it just so happens that the skill has no effect on the target, and thus he has to wait out the transformation. The little piece of meat becomes a biomaniac monster that comes at him, charging at him with full force, and even getting a taste of Chen Bai in the mix. However, Chen Bai has super speed regeneration, but so does the monster. As the two of them clash, Chen Bai thinks to himself how he hasn't been able to fight at his full might since he was reborn. He doesn't want to get restricted by becoming too overpowered that he has to simply stop harnessing his potential, and thus wants to use this monster as a way to flex his muscles, regardless of the damage. The monster has infinite regeneration. As it seems, the monster might basically be immortal. However, after 1 hour of taking it on, the regeneration becomes much slower, although still in progress. The fight ensues for an hour more, and the monster is left to a pulp after Chen Bai has his way with it. The regeneration is too slow at this point to consider it a threat. An hour longer, and we see that it has generally been left to its initial size when it came out as a piece of meat, although much less alive. Seeing that its regeneration has essentially stopped, Chen Bai squashes the level 8 monster to get 10,000 experience points and gains 2 attribute points in the process. Chen Bai still doesn't let his guard down until the notification board reads that the cool incinerator has been made permanent, indicating that he has cleared this dungeon. He's also offered the option of uploading the video of him taking out the monster. The payment of 1 copper coin would belong to him as the uploader. Meanwhile, not even letting his identity out by hiding his face, he lets that option go. And suddenly we see all his followers in the chat group, especially at Song Zikyong's place, looking at the video. Their chat group reads that Evolver White has released the 5 to 10 level Cool Incinerator level videos. Everyone at their own place watches in amazement, some needing to slow it down to understand the fight, while others are excited, and some find it ruthless. He receives a lot of compliments and comments on the chat. Meanwhile, back at the dungeon, he is partially devouring the complex mutant, getting 300 black light virus evolution points. These points are different from the other virus points, and he can only use the points available right now to upgrade his abilities and skills of the black light virus. His recovery speed is up by 300%, where he can regenerate a severed limb as well. This becomes his passive skill that he cannot turn off. This is basically a level A skill for him. But now that that's done, Chen Bai is interested to see what the Nightmare level boss has dropped. It gets quite a number of items, with the Biodemon Professional Scroll of level A that has pros and cons, a genetic essence that is pretty much like a skill bonus, which he drinks immediately. There's also a piece of clothing that he cannot understand, called faceless skin, that can be used to improve body shape by prolonged wearing and can change one's appearance. He also gets a whole lot more common items that can be worn under armor and a skill book that can enhance cell activity, but is invalid to him, and he decides to trade it on the chat box later on. He thinks to himself that it's time to leave, as all he has to do is hand the goblin god the part of the boss monster's body. He thinks that the dungeon was far less profound than he had anticipated, such that he was able to complete it in one day. However, as he is about to leave, something clicks in his head. He figures that it cannot simply be that the goblin god gave him an aimless target like this dungeon. He's conflicted between the idea of whether this secret dungeon, the creature's limb, or maybe he himself was the target Lord Leto was going for. While parting ways with him, Chen Bai heard Lord Leto murmur that Chen Bai, as the harvest for that day, was quite satisfying. Chen Bai quickly thinks about checking out the dungeon one more time, as he might have missed something. He checks the inside of the incinerator, which looks regular. He checks out the pipe, which is definitely something odd, as the pipe's length exceeds the height of the room once Chen Bai gets inside. However, it too has a dead end. He just touches it, thinking that the pipe might not be the key. Suddenly, a face materializes out of the end wall. Chen Bai's reflexes kick in to punch it. However, he figures out that it's really a mask which can be collected as an item. There is no description on the notification window, and it's most probably a triple S class item associated with the gods. This seems much more likely to be the item that Lord Leto wants. He thinks to himself that this is definitely something he would want to stock. In the next scene, we see him come out of the dungeon with the girl waiting, who has already seen his video and comments on his unbelievable strength. The price to watch the video was 1 copper coin. Chen Bai gets thinking about how many coins he might have earned. The notification window shows a large amount of 869 gold coins, 93 silver coins, and 15 copper coins. This means a lot of people have been watching his video, but for some reason, Chen Bai is not happy. He needs 1,000 coins to unlock the storage, something protected by the will of the universe from all directions. He would have to carry his items undetected. He would need that storage, but he must wait until turning in the mission to the goblin and trade god. It's nighttime, and although the girl suggests they'll go for the Danshang Villa settlement, it's definitely not safe. She suggests a few hotels a short distance from the university that they can spend the night at. At the hotel, the girl is trying on multiple costumes to seduce Chen Bai. However, he finds most of them childish. The girl, however, finds one particular costume with a horse tail, receiving Chen Bai's interest after all. Fast forward to the notification board telling Chen Bai that he has somehow acquired 1,000 coins. This means that he can access the storage protected by the universe's will. He soon makes sure that the mask has been stored within the storage, and thus he proceeds to the next part of the mission, throwing a golden coin to a wall. This creates a portal, summoning the god of the goblins and trade, Lord Leto. There was a famous piece of advice from Chen Bai's previous life regarding Lord Leto. Emotions also have trade-offs when dealing with the goblin and trade god. Lord Leto tends to compensate for emotions and feelings as well, provided he sees someone as valuable in the first place. Just as Chen Bai thinks of this, the goblin and trade god appears, complimenting the boy for getting his task done so quickly. To show for it, Chen Bai presents the limb of the monster he defeated the night before. However, the god quickly senses that it took an entire night to summon him. He questions whether Chen Bai even wants the treasure scroll. But Chen Bai adds emotional weight to the moment, pointing out that Lord Leto sent him into a nightmare-level dungeon without any warning. Without Chen Bai's level of expertise, it could have meant death. Leto is aware of this and considers it part of the test. After all, the treasure should only go to someone who's proven they're worth it. As a reward, Leto allows Chen Bai to choose among his best level B or lesser gifts and informs him that the next task will be the final round. Chen Bai selects the Scroll of Recovery blueprint, which the god commands him to take. The final task, acquire 2 SSS-level professional scrolls. Chen Bai complains that this is an extremely difficult task, but Leto's bargaining chip is that the end goal, the real prize, is his most valuable asset. Unless he gets every penny's worth, Leto would regret giving it away. Even though they have an understanding, and even though Triple S rank is beyond what most gods are born with, considering Leto himself began with a level A profession, Chen Bai accepts the challenge. The scene shifts to a giant rat wreaking havoc on the city. Its stats far exceed those of average evolved humans. Song Zikyong and Leng Shuang are investigating from the shadows. The rat is much larger than the last one they encountered. Regardless of their own giftedness, its attributes are 3 to 4 times higher, meaning their people can't handle it. As they talk about keeping a low profile, the rat senses them and launches an attack. They escape by a hair's breadth. Just as it prepares to strike again, someone crashes down from the sky, landing a heavy blow to the rat's head. Chen Bai has returned to the battlefield. Two new boys are accompanied with the girls, newly added to the squad. He orders Ling Shuang to call the men to clean up the area and compensate everyone for their losses. Meanwhile, he asks Song Zikyung to accompany him to discuss the situation. Back at the villa, they talk about how, after the zombies were cleared, the giant rats started appearing from the east side. 6 of Song Zikyung's warehouses were destroyed, with over 100 lives lost in collateral damage. She even has a list of the casualties and losses to show Chen Bai. Grasping the gravity of the situation, he takes responsibility for dealing with the threat himself and tells Song Zikyung to get some rest. Before leaving, however, she wants to introduce him to someone named Qin Ling Yu, who was rescued and brought to the villa. She wants to serve Chen Bai and become one of his people. Chen Bai tells Song Zikyung she may leave, while Qin Ling Yu can stay. Qin Ling Yu is a law student, and Chen Bai is curious to see how good a sharp-tongued lawyer can be. He asks her to demonstrate her abilities, up close and personal. A conversation from later on suggests the two had fun, and after commending her for her methods in bed, Chen Bai walks to the French windows to have the Dongshang bird-eyes view. He then calls Qin Ling Yu towards himself to show her the regions of the city. She comes and positions herself to satisfy him once more. She soon realizes her B-grade focus skill was all aimed at one and only one single thing, while Chen Bai had asked her to take a scan. Chen Bai quickly reorients her to show her the vicinities, the hillside residential area, and the lower mountain neighborhood. Chen Bai wants her to develop different regulations for the areas. He wants her to put her practical assets to the test. Once they have that down, they get back to being frisky. Next, Chen Bai is scouting the outlet where he speculates all the mutant rats are coming from. He also analyzes that there will be a rat lair just as they get into the sewer, which is something he can handle on his own. But he has brought men with him so that they can become the backbone of the villa area to protect everyone, even when Chen Bai isn't around. The men seem very committed to Chen Bai as they bow down to him as they kneel down to their master's will. However, as much as Chen Bai enjoys the idea of being a master, he asks them to call him brother. He puts his feet into the stream, walks towards the entrance, and breaks the steel cage used for screening. The special mission sewer host has been engaged, as Chen Bai sees on the notification board. He asks his fellows whether they see this on their notification board as well, and all of them start falling in line with the details that they have to kill all the mutant rats, including the Rat King, and finding out the source. Others concentrate on the rewards, which make sure that everyone is on the same page. With torches in their hands, they walk inside. It's quiet, but only at first, as the swarming rat army comes charging at them. Chen Bai has his zombie claws ready, giving everyone a heads up. He slashes through the incoming rats and asks everyone to keep checking which one of the bodies is still alive, acquiring the rat skin ability in the process. We see the comrades checking on the bodies one by one. Moments after this, we find out that they have gone through 16 different sections of the pipeline, clearing most of them immediately. They see and hear another rat coming, and Chen Bai sits this one out, asking Song Zikyung to scout first and then attack. However, she has a horrified look on her face, understanding that the incoming rat is a level 7 mutated beast. It's basically the boss monster. Before she can even try to see some of its attributes, the rat is too close to Song Zikyung, and Chen Bai interferes with his large claws to take it out of the way. He gets plague boots, poison protection, and a boost in attributes. He equips himself with those boots, which spread terror by the bearer of the boots. Chen Bai instructs them to now move on to find out the reason for the source of the mutation. Gradually, they have scouted the sewers 5 times already, with Chen Bai acquiring more and more viruses as he walks. He realizes that the viruses he is acquiring at every subsequent point weren't even there before the trials had begun. The quality of these diseases is such that even new evolvers are susceptible to them. With this information, he figures out that the mutation source must be somewhere in the vicinity. Soon, he asks everyone to stop there and turn around, as they cannot follow him from that point on without consequences. He feels that the virus flow has drastically increased, and can only imagine how much the rate would be once he gets to the actual source. He can sense that he is in the cesspool of viruses. As he grows closer, he sees a corpse, which is probably the source that the notification board had instructed about. Chen Bai, examining the corpse, deduces from the virus concentration that the scroll clutched in its hand must be the source of the plague. Now that he's close enough, the scroll is clearly visible, but when he opens it, nothing happens. No notification panel, No skill prompt, no sign of an awakening, evolution, or ability gain. Just silence. All he sees is a giant message from the plague cult, declaring that their high priest sacrificed himself to symbolize the arrival of their prophesied new god, one who would rise from the ashes of the old gods. The message speaks of divine gifts descending from above, transcending human limits and allowing their spirits to live forever. Chenbai, intrigued, realizes he's never heard of this cult in his previous life. The revelation catches him off guard, but he decides not to be too occupied with it for now. He goes on to observe all the viruses that he can, as gathering them would enhance his skills to an unprecedented level. But as he starts to absorb, he feels his body react quite vigorously to it. Consequently, the notification window opens to him, showing him that he has completed the sewer mission and informing him that he is now the bearer of the Plague Seal. He is now given a mission named Plague Cult, which has a triple S difficulty level. He is instructed to find the Magares of the Plague Cult and test them. The initial objective of this mission is to find a Plague Bringer. Reading this, his mind is only echoing one thing: Heloise. He can now be qualified to face Heloise head-on. Soon the dungeon opens in front of him. He wants to enter, but first he needs to examine it. It is a dungeon with a Hell difficulty level. It would take a month for the dungeon to generate. Normal difficulty ranges from level 1 to level 10, with a limit of 3 entries per day. Past the development phase, we see a scene where Song Ziqiang is checking the dungeon out, thinking about it. Chenbai comes from behind, acknowledging her as a perfect candidate to enter. A few minutes later, other evolvers arrive to join them, and Chenbai instructs them that the dungeon isn't that spacious. Not a group larger than 4 to 8 people should enter at once. He reminds them that living through the dungeon is the priority over the loot that can be collected. He wants his followers to grow greatly in terms of innate abilities, so he would enter with a few of them, but be generally passive, letting them handle everything until it's necessary for him to intervene. He then asks all of them to join the White Emperor Palace chat group. Chenbai's number among the Magares is 001 as well, which shocks Song Ziqiang and Song Ge for a moment. He tells them it's simply the order in which everyone evolved. Song Gu is a bit confused why she isn't invited, and Chenbai reminds her of the altercation where she peed herself while facing zombies. He cannot risk having her in what he considers his harem. Song Ge claims that she is no longer that little girl, and has grown since then. However, Chenbai cannot just take her word for it and asks her to enter the dungeon and prove herself. Within the dungeon, we see giant rats coming for the group that has entered. However, young Song Ge is deeply motivated to get through this herself and keeps everyone back as she moves forward to take care of the giant rodents. Chenbai realizes that he doesn't even know what Lu Li and Song Ge's talents are after they became evolvers. Lu Li can manifest illusions to create disembodied phantoms, where her imagination is the limit. Meanwhile, Song Ge's ability is a C-rank natural aptitude that accelerates the growth of experience and proficiency by half. He finds Lu Li's ability to be far superior to Song Ge in battle. However, as he speaks, Song Ge has already taken care of the giant rats, which are much more formidable than simple zombies. Chenbai finds that she is really passionate about this, and so accepts her as worthy of being a part of his harem. Although it takes a blow to her ego, Song Ge isn't showing much eagerness. Chenbai knows how to play this game as well. Besides, Song Ge's mother, Song Ziqiang, enters the mix, revealing that Song Ge was upset when Qinling Yu was introduced to Chenbai, as she wanted to be introduced instead. We see her being accepted, where she is the 261,120th person to be an evolver and accepted to join the White Emperor Palace. Seeing this, Song Ge blushes and runs away, announcing she's going to take care of the other monsters. As she leaves, Song Ziqiang feels that once they're back in the villa, Song Ge will surely refer to him as her daddy. Song Ziqiang seems to understand that in a world as messed up as this one, her daughter can use someone like Chenbai to be her daddy. We move to the bathroom of a luxury suite in a hotel, where a girl is enjoying herself in a hot bathtub, thanking the group leader in her mind, Chenbai, for giving the tips necessary to get through this life. Suddenly, she receives a notification that Chenbai has cleared a sewer dungeon, and we see her quickly get out to watch all the action. The video is worth 10 copper coins, and the girl believes she will go bankrupt at this rate. She seems a bit put off by how many girls are surrounding him. We move to other evolvers also watching in their own places of ease, most of them fast-forwarding the subordinates' fight to see what Chenbai's doing. One of the viewers is an S-ranker, along with his friends, and the boss turns out to be a level 10 beast that Chenbai takes out in just one shot. The S-ranker's friends are very confused about how powerful Chenbai can possibly be, considering he's not showing any special skills. But the S-ranker assures them that he is much more powerful than him because he took down the monster within an instant of contact. On the other hand, Chen Bai is seen talking to Song Zi-cheong about creating a set of regulations for the different regions where she'll be working with Lu Li and Qin Ling Yu on this venture. He wants to ensure that the ground rules for the base economy and equipment trade are established as soon as possible. Understanding that fully, she asks for any other instructions he might have. He shows her the demonic ball of flesh from the monster meat he took out the first day they met. She understands that his intentions are regarding a wall material that can eat away at flesh and blood to grow indefinitely, something that even the strongest material they can think of to protect themselves cannot do. Chen knows this, saying that depending on the material they use to create the wall, they can rule a large area in a very short amount of time. He also shows them the other stuff he got the other day from the task Lord Leto had asked him. He shows Song Zi-cheong the cloth that can help as a mild disguise and change the body structure and appearance. Among all this chatter about the dungeon equipment Chen Bai has gathered, Song Zi-cheong starts talking about Chen Bai's happiness, leading the conversation to how Song Ge will call her daddy soon, if it pleases him. We soon see him sleeping with Song Ge and some other girls, as he stands up to leave somewhere. Moments later, we see him leave with the plague rope on and his shoes firmly tight as he walks, planning how he can maximize the amount of equipment from the sewer dungeon by entering it in planned sequences. Suddenly, someone named Dreamy initiates a chat with him, seeking guidance from the group leader. Chen Bai asks her to send her skills, details, or at least her attributes so that he might guide her. However, he doesn't recognize the name Dreamy from his previous life. To his surprise, Dreamy, also known as Dream Butterfly, is a triple S level evolver with an infinite growth talent. She explains that she has the ability to control certain things in people's dreams, taking away items and adding elements of herself. She talks about a dream totem place where she can initiate a dream and invite others into it. Chen Bai is interested, and the way this works is that he will send her a picture in the form of a dream totem, and they can guide him in his dream world. However, Chen Bai is hesitant, as he will have no control in her dream world. Dreamy offers him 10 gold coins to sign an evolver's contract, which is worth 10 gold coins and will be under the jurisdiction of the universe's will. Chen Bai is confused about why she needs his advice if she can afford 10 gold coins. It turns out that the monsters she beats in the dream world actually die in the real world, where she can adjust the explosion rate to get gold coins. She also offers him a spiritual perception and deal level skill book, which Chen Bai considers quite valuable. Her real problem is that despite being strong in her dreams, she is utterly weak in reality. It's obvious that in a world like this, if she doesn't acquire powers in real life, she'll die soon. This confirms Chen Bai's suspicions that she died too early in the previous life. He cannot let this opportunity go, especially considering the contract and preparing someone with such important power. Soon, we see Chen Bai trying to focus on some sort of photograph in another room in Song Zi-cheong's villa, where he thinks about the dream that will initiate in the coming moments. The instructions given to him by Dreamy include a waiting period of 3 minutes, where he has to focus on the picture. He does exactly that, and within 3 minutes, he can see a cute girl standing in front of him, introducing herself as Meng Meng, the girl who signed the contract with him. Chen Bai greets Meng Meng and introduces himself. He observes her surroundings, a large, cozy bedroom-like environment, complete with toys, and comments that this world doesn't seem suitable for training. Meng Meng, however, surprises him by revealing a fully equipped gym nearby, ready for use. Chen Bai is stunned, realizing how vast her world really is. On the contrary, Meng Meng clarifies that this isn't her world. She explains that she's just a dream walker. She can enter and transform this space, but it doesn't belong to her. With that out of the way, they head to the gym. Chen Bai remarks that she looks like a middle schooler, to which Meng Meng replies that she was a novelist before Doomsday. He understands her desire to become stronger, and tells her the only real way is to spar and fight. But there's a catch. In this dream world, her mental power channels directly into her physical strength. With a mental power of 48, that becomes the raw strength Chen Bai has to face. Still, he isn't fazed. He tells her to come at him with full force. She throws a powerful punch, but he casually sidesteps, letting her stumble forward. From this, he immediately concludes she lacks control over her own weight. Her martial arts are clearly underdeveloped. He begins coaching her, how to balance herself, lock onto a target, deliver solid punches and effective kicks. Meng Meng admits she's terrible at all of it, but Chen Bai shrugs it off and encourages her to give it her all. Later, Song Zicheng informs Chen Bai that all the new regulations, rules, and laws have been posted. Boards are set up, and representatives are assigned to handle individual concerns. Chen Bai is satisfied. He announces that he'll be leaving early the next morning and appoints Song Zichong as his deputy to oversee things in his absence. She suspects that since his plague set isn't complete, he'll stick around longer, but Chen Bai brushes it off. He has more pressing matters than an E-grade equipment set. She leans closer, hinting that many people want a piece of him, and suggests he return soon. Chen Bai knows he must prevent any chaos from breaking out while he's gone. He calls for a meeting to redirect everyone's pent-up energy into more productive pursuits. That night, the girls get flirtatious with Chen Bai. After pacifying the group and asserting his authority, he finally sets off. As he's about to leave, Leng Shuang approaches with news. There's a minor uproar at the foot of the mountain. Chen Bai is slightly disappointed, assuming she should have handled it herself with the rules already in place. But she assures him the situation is under control. The issue? One of the dissenters turns out to be his former classmate. Chen Bai descends the mountain toward the villa's foothills, where he finds Li Chen, his old classmate, waiting. Leng Shuang had mentioned he was among those unhappy with the rule requiring a copper coin for access to security and facilities. Li Chen greets him respectfully. Chen Bai maintains that the rules are fair. It only takes one zombie kill to earn a copper coin, and several opportunities exist for people with different talents to earn income. The system is balanced, but Li Chen's objection isn't entirely about taxation. He argues that Chen Bai, with access to post-apocalyptic resources, could do more to help people in need. As student president, he offers a suggestion. If Chen Bai removes even a single rule, people would accept his leadership more easily. Chen Bai has no time to entertain vague advice. To reassert his position, he issues a warning. Everyone has 3 minutes to either follow the rules or leave his presence. Otherwise, the consequences will be clear. Even after Chen Bai's warning, Liu Feng doesn't budge. In fact, he doubles down with cockiness, relying on the power of public support. He believes he's doing everyone a favor, not just fighting for himself, and assumes the people will stand by him. But Chen Bai and the others remain firm in what they've just said. Chen Bai doesn't have to say much more. His guards take over, insulting Liu Feng for being useless, claiming he can't even kill one zombie to earn a single copper coin. One of them mockingly offers Liu Feng a job as a dog guard for 2 copper coins a night. Infuriated, Liu Feng lashes out, threatening Chen Bai and the group, warning that they'll regret driving him away. Chen Bai knows he will in fact regret it, but not for the reason Liu Feng thinks. Calmly, he steps closer and suddenly grows his giant zombie claw, ready to end the matter in an instant. Disobedience like that isn't tolerated. The guards agree, asserting that their role is to protect only those who want protection. Suddenly, everyone realizes there's only 1 minute left before Chen Bai's offer expires. Panic spreads, and most of them fall to their knees, begging for mercy and promising to follow the taxation rules strictly, whatever punishment he sees fit. For trying to challenge his authority, Chen Bai fines them 5 copper coins instead of 1. Everything will return to normal after a month. He leaves Ling Shuang in charge of handling the rest. Meanwhile, Chen Bai receives a message from Meng Meng. She's struggling to improve her physical skills in real life. Though her mental abilities are unmatched, her body isn't keeping up. Chen Bai advises patience and promises to find her a book on strength training. She asks where he lives and is thrilled to hear he's in Jiangchang, close to her own city, Wuchang. Chen Bai even offers to have her picked up. He remembers that, in his previous life, he received an S-level job mission near Wuchang. While not triple S, it's still a valuable mission that he can leverage for materials or intel. We shift to a hotel in Jiangchang, where a group of guys are checking their supplies. They estimate they can last only about 3 days. It's what they expected after losing 5 men to a terrifyingly sharp and perceptive super zombie. With that thing on the hunt, they dare not go below the 10th floor. We catch a glimpse of the zombie, armored, bulked up, and absolutely monstrous. Then they spot a shadow moving on the ground and quickly retreat into the shadows themselves. But one of them points out that it was a human. Given the circumstances, it seems insane for anyone to be walking around with a killer zombie roaming for flesh. But Wei Shiwei, the one who sensed it, is certain it was a human. Meanwhile, Chen Bai, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, spots the tyrant, the name of the mutant zombie. He knows he has the exact weapon for this. As Wei Shiwei and her friends watch from the hotel room, they see Chen Bai unleash a monster claw. Her friends mutter that this is exactly what they expected of him, that he'd turn into a monster. But the real monster, the zombie, has been taken down. As the camera zooms in, we see Chen Bai has undergone muscle strengthening and a new transformation called the Shield, which bodes well for them. Suddenly, someone from the window calls his name. Bai, however, sees no one on the balcony. It turns out that one of Wei Shui's friends pulls her back, reminding her that she could get them killed. Even if she thinks it's someone she knows and not a monster or a villain in disguise, she should risk only herself, not the whole group. Suddenly, someone speaks from behind the drapes, asking who called him from inside. Wei Shui opens the curtains to see Bai hanging from the window with one of his claws. We then learn that Wei Shui is basically Song Gei's best friend. She immediately asks about Song Gei and how she's doing. Soon after, we see the whole group gathered. Bai sits at a table explaining what's been going on. He reveals that he has established a settlement around the Danshang villas, with the help of Song Ziqiang, who has been assisting him in taking care of the survivors. Wei Shui's friends don't believe it at first. The idea of the Queen of Jiangcheng helping a little boy sounds implausible. Bai tells them to go and see for themselves. He wouldn't lie about something that could be so easily disproved. Just then, more students walk in, having heard Bai's name. Qizheng rushes in, accompanied by a few friends, including Lu Feng and Zhao Mu. It turns out that many of their university mates are in the area, only held back by the monster zombie blocking the route. Lu Fengcheng expresses his willingness to go to the settlement in Dongshan but says the path is too dangerous. He requests Bai to clear the way. Bai, however, makes it clear that the settlement has a rule: 1 copper coin per day per person. Lu Feng believes that once they recuperate, they'll be able to earn even a gold coin. Bai, however, has other matters to attend to. If it weren't for the tyrant monster roaming nearby, he wouldn't have intervened at all. It's no ordinary creature. Still, he offers a few low-level items to Qizheng, Zhao Mu, and Wei Shiwei to help them make it to the settlement on their own. Now that they know the route to Dongshan, they probably won't need his help further. With that, Bai leaves to continue the errand he was originally on. As he departs, Bai suddenly receives a notification. Dreamy has started a private conversation. It's about King Han's complaints in the group, and she thinks she might be able to help. Meanwhile, the other students are strategizing when and how to move. They'll need to cross the entire Jiangcheng region to reach the settlement. To everyone's pleasant surprise, Bai returns through the window again. He says he needs a room for himself, and Qizheng offers his own. Before Bai can settle in, Wei Shui comes running after him, asking for Song Gei's evolution number. Hearing this, Qizheng figures he might as well ask for Bai's too. When Bai replies, Qizheng bursts out laughing until he hears the number 01. Realizing it's not a joke stuns everyone. They can't hide their disbelief. It dawns on them how incredibly lucky Bai must be, being the first evolver. They start thinking back about the strange requests Bai used to make in the dormitory group, like asking for the physical exam to be rescheduled. At the time, it just seemed odd, but in hindsight, it had helped them prepare better. All of it points to one chilling realization. Bai must have known about the doomsday from the very beginning. They all agree, though, that Bai's suggestions were quite useful regardless, which is all that matters. Suddenly, Wei Shui's face goes completely red for no apparent reason. We soon learn that she had been talking to Song Gei, having gotten her contact from Bai. However, Song Gei shocks her with the assumption that Wei Shui must also have been sharing a bed with Bai. Songa seems glad. At least she's not the only one who has to call Bai daddy. With all of this on her mind, Wei Shui walks down the corridor and finds herself outside Bai's room. As she stands there, she overhears one of the guys behind the wall talking about Bai's statements. According to him, everything Bai said sounds a little too strange and has too many loopholes. Despite all the help Bai's instructions have provided, they remain skeptical. Their exact intentions, however, remain unclear. We cut to the dream space in the Magic City, where Bai visits King Han's place. Han is a bit laid back but apologizes to the others. Bai is greeted by Han Xiao and another guy, Crow, a masked evolver who introduces himself as an SS rank fear incarnator. Crow explains that he's filling in because Meng Meng, aka Dreamy, could only bring one other person into the dream world besides Han, so he's here as the filler. It turns out that despite being an S-rank evolver, Han Xiao is the weakest among them due to his limited mind control abilities. Bai doesn't cling to the negatives. Instead, he notes that Han is actually lucky that Dreamy has mastered dreamwalking to such an extent. Just 2 days ago, she couldn't bring anyone to any space other than her own, but now she can use her dream totem to gather people in her house. It's a brand new upgrade to the skill. Not wanting to waste time, Bai skips the pleasantries and asks why Han was complaining so much in the group chat. It turns out Han has received an exclusive mission very relevant only to him. Among his father's belongings, he had found a mental record from Red Star Mental Hospital that had mentioned an aunt Han had never heard of, along with a reference to a hereditary mental illness. The mission board had asked him about the disease's symptoms, why the ant was never mentioned, and whether his mental talent might be genetically linked. It hinted that the answers still lie in the Red Star Mental Hospital. Before long, the group is standing outside the Red Star Mental Hospital, now turned into a dungeon of its own. Han says he can't handle a nightmare-level mission meant for S to 12 levelers alone. Ever since his first time in the universe, he's felt as though someone has been watching him, someone who wants to take everything of value from him. Hearing this, Chen Bai takes charge and initiates the dungeon. As they enter, they realize the initial monsters are a bit small, not much of a threat. Still, Chen Bai warns them to stay alert. The first creature that comes at them is a deranged nurse with a syringe, twisted far beyond crazy. Crow wants to test her himself and uses his fear-inducing ability. If the group thought the nurse was scary, Crow proves she wasn't nearly scary enough. He frightens even the monster, causing it to explode instantly. Chen Bai considers Crow's move quite villainous. The monster drops a sonic waveform skill. Chen Bai points out that either Han or Meng Meng would be more suited to using it. Han isn't interested. He's focused on his main objective. So Meng Meng picks up the sonic skill. Chen Bai immediately tells her to use it. Whatever consequences it brings, it will do one job perfectly: lure out all the monsters at once, so they won't have to hunt them down one by one. On Chen Bai's command, Meng Meng unleashes the sonic blast. We soon see our heroes facing what seems like 4 versus an infinite number, with Meng Meng being very new to combat. She is utterly nervous seeing all of this, if not outright scared. However, the group leader, Chen Bai, consoles her by telling her not to worry at all and asking her to put all her trust in him. Meanwhile, in his head, Chen Bai is actually enjoying this. He now has the chance to flex his muscles and try out his newly upgraded skills. The others are fully ready to fight. Here, we see Han's skill in action, with multiple knives floating around him, pointed toward the enemies, while Crow expands his shadow of darkness to strangle and intimidate his opponents. Meng Meng, who had no idea how she would do in a combat environment, now has a rocket launcher on her shoulder and feels really good about it. However, the numbers are large, and even though Meng Meng can create anything in her dreams, it's uncertain if that will be enough. Crow openly wonders why Chen Bai hasn't had his part of the fun, as we see him standing there, his claws still opened, waiting for the right time. Soon, we hear his train of thought. He's considering powering up one of his skills to reach its limit. He knows the skill takes a long time to fully activate and that he can't really unlock its potential mid-fight. Suddenly, however, he receives a full charge Earth Spikes notification. In a matter of seconds, something terrifying emerges. He wipes out every monster in his sight with just a single signal of hundreds of Earth Spikes. Suddenly, Han notices that 2 enemies are still alive and coming for Chen Bai from behind. Han wants to take them down, but it turns out Chen Bai had left them on purpose. 2 crazy nurses we soon see restrained. Chen Bai's black light swallowing ability allows him to see partial memories of his victims. It's a traumatic journey. In this crazy nurse's memory, the number 16 keeps coming up. Other times, the nurses are shown being sacrificed or used in summoning demons, something that instantly clicks a memory with Chen Bai. He had heard of demon summoning dungeon from one of the hospitals in his previous life. At the time, his level had exceeded the dungeons, so he didn't pay it much attention. But now he's face to face with it. The memories of the crazy nurse are tragic and deeply disturbing. Our heroes soon scout all the floors of the building, assuming they've lured in all the monsters. But something doesn't make sense. The dungeon boss still hasn't shown up. Crow even speculates that maybe the dungeon monster is just too afraid. Hearing this, a voice from the shadows calls Crow too arrogant. The heroes go on guard. Someone steps forward, introducing themselves as the director of the Red Star Mental Hospital, but it doesn't look anything like a human. It's a demon wearing eyeglasses. It introduces itself as the messenger of Solomon, the 16th of the 72 pillars, the servant of the god of demons, and the insomniac. The demon fully intends to sacrifice our heroes for his demon master. However, he thinks Meng Meng could be of use. If she bears the offspring of his lord, she may escape the fate of her friends. Chen Bai has a hot take. Instead of them being arrogant, it's the demon who's full of himself, just a low-class transformed creature pretending to be divine. The demon laughs at them and begins to supplicate to his god, his demon lord, for power. Suddenly, Crow gets an eerie feeling that makes him fall to his knees, clutching his head in panic. Meng Meng is occupied dealing with the mental wave too, and Chen Bai quickly realizes that this is one of those problematic demons that rely on consistent mental torture. Although Chen Bai isn't one of those low-level rookies with weak mental resistance, he doesn't possess any direct mental attacks to counter this beast. So instead, he manifests his claws and charges straight toward the demon. In a matter of moments, though, everything turns red, like they've been plunged into a surreal mental abyss of black fire. Even though most of the battle is physical, Chenbai struggles to land decisive blows. The demon is intrigued. Chenbai manages to push through the mental flames and manifests shields on his arms to protect himself. But the demon is determined to make Chenbai understand that the endgame is inevitable. He'll succumb to the director's mental oppression eventually. Han, however, seems mostly unfazed. Suddenly he smirks, brushing off whatever pressure the demon thinks it's applying. Using his own mental skill to suppress the pain of his comrades, his teammates shoot him a look, as if he's some cocky jerk who could have done this way earlier but chose not to. Han doesn't know much, but when the demon hears his comrades call him Han, something clicks. The demon realizes that Han Jiao is a descendant of the Han family, his master's bloodline. With this revelation, Han tries to pull a fast one by playing, basically, the part of the great-great-grandson to the demon's master. But the demon isn't fooled. He still believes he can reduce Han to ashes, calling him a traitorous relative. The demon is even convinced he'll be rewarded for killing Han. The group realizes he's gathering his breath for one of his dreaded black flame attacks, something the four of them simply can't withstand. Suddenly, however, instead of breathing the black fire steadily, the demon coughs it out. Chenbai mocks the demon for this. It turns out that although his first strike didn't land cleanly, he still managed to inject one of his viruses into the demon, making it vulnerable to influenza. Now, every time the demon tries to breathe fire, all he can do is sneeze. Chenbai comments on how long it took for the virus to take effect, given the demon's bulky physique. We then see a notification bar pop up with the details of the influenza strain Chenbai injected. It's a lung infection that begins working in the first phase, lasting anywhere from 1 second to 10 minutes depending on opponent's strength. This phase gradually weakens attributes, causing issues like inaccuracy, reduced speed, and random failures. Once the enemy's physique drops below half, Phase 2 kicks in. 5 to 10 diseases are triggered randomly, and focus plummets. Concentration failure can go as high as 90%. Chenbai doesn't even have to attack this time. The momentary collapse during the demon's sneezing fit is already visible. Suddenly, the third phase kicks in. Breathing is now compromised. The demon can only think about becoming a higher being, but in his current state, where he can't even breathe, that ambition becomes laughably out of reach. Without further ado, the boss, introduced as Zhao Changlin, is defeated. Chenbai has taken a level 12er down a dungeon boss and receives 30,000 experience points based on the battle. Chenbai turns back to his comrades, only to find them hiding, blocking their faces to avoid catching the virus. But the virus only spreads when Chenbai specifically targets someone. The team quickly realizes that Chenbai's skills are simply unmatched. Chenbai casually mentions that some demons don't need to breathe, so they can stop flattering him now. Although he's already received the notification for dungeon clearance, and even a prompt to upload the strategy video, Han doesn't seem to have gotten the notification for his mission's completion. Chenbai infers that Han's mission clue must still be out there. The group agrees to post the video with their faces blurred, charging 5 copper coins per view. Soon, evolvers everywhere are watching it. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that the man with the claws in the video is none other than Chenbai, the White Emperor. Yet, the students watching the footage from inside the hotel can't seem to connect the dots. Chenbai is supposed to be resting in the adjacent room, asleep. It doesn't make any sense how this video could have gone online. This stirs up some speculation. A few, like Li Cheng, begin suspecting Chenbai might be a fraud, while others flat out deny that the man in the video could be him. The skeptics double down, claiming the video only showcases the combat ingenuity and proves nothing about the settlement's existence. After all, it's common for the powerful to manipulate the weak to boost their own strength. Everyone knows that Li Cheng isn't exactly on good terms with Chenbai, one of the latest issues being Chenbai's refusal to share dungeon items he'd obtained with him only. Wei Shui jumps into the conversation, insisting everyone see what Song Ge has sent. It's a video clip of a massive meat wall, covered in small gaping mouths that are devouring humans. But according to Wei Shui, it only devours corpses, serving as a kind of grotesque defense system for the settlement. Songzhou's video runs 10 minutes long, an upload that must have cost her quite a bit, just to prove the settlement is real. She lays out the ground rules the students might encounter from the mountain's base up, stating that anyone can enter the foot of the mountain with just a single copper coin. She then introduces various areas, including the mountainside, where many of her relatives reside. These zones are also under the works to be integrated with leisure facilities. She tells Wei Shui that she might be allowed near the villas, one of the most secure and lavish sections, since she's already met Chen Bai. Sangha jokes that although Chen Bai hasn't made a move on her yet, he surely will once he's free. She doesn't hold back from labeling Chen Bai a womanizer, confidently predicting that he'd welcome Wei Shui into his villa harem without hesitation. Despite the casual banter, Songge just wants to see Wei Shui, her best friend, especially since she's planning to enter the dungeons to strengthen herself. Sangge knows that satisfying someone like Chen Bai isn't going to be easy alone, or at her current level. Watching the video unfold, Wei Shui instantly regrets sharing it with the others before giving it a watch herself. One of the boys, noticing Wei Shui's discomfort, suddenly confesses his feelings. He warns her that Chen Bai isn't someone she should get involved with, but he's been rejected so many times that his words carry no weight, at least not for Wei Shui. Meanwhile, back in the dream world, Chen Bai discovers that the demon director carried a special blood factor capable of affecting both his body and the black light virus once absorbed. As a result, Chen Bai acquires a skill called Health and an A-rank skill called Health Fire, which he gains while expelling the blood factor. This blood factor is key to advancing the demon's bloodline evolution. Chen Bai stores it in a test tube as a valuable item. At the same time, Han finds that the demon's defeat has dropped a professional Hell Messenger scroll, along with some lesser items. He fairly divides the loot among the squad. The final matter at hand is solving Han's mission and finding the remaining clue. They enter the director's office, assuming they'll uncover the necessary intel, but they're greeted instead by a massive demonic shadow radiating a powerful aura. It turns out to be a statue of Jipai, the 16th demon of Solomon, one of the legendary 72, the very master that the demon director had spoken of earlier. From the aura, it's clear the real demon is somehow linked to the statue in the room. Curious, Chen Bai wonders if there's a way to summon it. A detour for a history lesson is in order. In the Han family, there was a girl who fell in love with the avatar of Jipai on the Blue Star. Since then, births only happen in pairs, a boy and a girl. The boy lives a fairly normal life, while the girl is destined to live forever after reaching adulthood, becoming Jipai's bride. The boys, totally unaware of this, go on living as usual until a new set of twins is born, and the cycle resets. A decade ago, Han Zhao's father learned the truth. Refusing to be bound by fate, he tried to kill his infant daughter to spare her a lifelong service to a demon. The director demon intervened and reported him to Jipai, resulting in the father being stripped of his bloodline as punishment for treason. Meanwhile, Han Zhao's sister was taken in by the director to be raised. As a reward, the demon director received the demon's blood. We learn all this from Meng Meng, who has been reading the director's journal, but this is as much as she can piece together. Han Zhao thanks her for going through it. He's not a fan of long paragraphs anyway. Chen Bai, meanwhile, has been studying the statue. Just as Meng Meng finishes her summary, Chen Bai finds a movable lever on the statue and pulls it, revealing a hidden passage. They're on the 4th floor, so this secret room must go deep underground. It turns out the room spans 2 or 3 floors down. Clearly, it's something important. Maybe a summoning room or a communication chamber for contacting Jipai. Inside, they find a floor-engraved seal and the overpowering stench of blood. The seal turns out to be the core of Hell's teleprotection formation. Chen Bai obtains a key item, the core itself. With it, spells from Hell's teleprotection system can be cast, including one that can summon Jipai into the dungeon at Red Star Mental Hospital. The cost? 16 lives, sacrificed with both soul and blood. The only upper hand they have is that if Jipai is summoned, his level will be capped at 12. Still, the dungeon itself will rise to Hell difficulty. When they tally up their strength, none of them exceeds level 8. Together they might pose a threat, but only barely. Chen Bai realizes that summoning Jipai now would be a death sentence. He makes this clear, since his comrades are already thinking about killing Jipai for glory and fortune. But it's not a matter of should, they simply can't. The group decides they should return only after leveling up to match the dungeon's difficulty. Crow, having enjoyed the run, asks to be added to the squad next time. Meng Meng agrees without hesitation. Han has been reflecting on the whole story about offspring and sisters. It doesn't seem like a consequence of the Blue Star's trial doomsday. It feels more like something that's always been woven into reality. Chen Bai asks why he feels that way. He doesn't remember much about his father, except that he turned into a different kind of zombie than others. He recalls him covered in purple and green plagues, which triggered Han to train his psychic abilities. Though they weren't close, Han sees this transformation as the final lesson his father left him. He believes the plagues were from the chemical factory his father worked at, as others there had the same affliction. This immediately reminds Chenbai of the plague mission he received after the sewer dungeon. Chenbai asks Han to take him to Shanghai the next time he goes. In the final moments, each squad Magaris shares their personal questions with brother Chenbai before parting ways. Chenbai wakes up in the hotel and looks around. People are passed out around him. He explains that he released viruses around himself to keep disturbances away. The others feel hopeless, believing they're about to die from the debuffs they've received. Chenbai clears the viruses from their systems, assuring them they'll recover their strength soon. While he's checking in on everyone, Wei Shui alerts him. One of the boys who had earlier confessed to her, Zhang Luping, actually came to kill Chenbai. Zhang and Liu Feng don't believe a word Chenbai has said about the settlement, even after watching the video from Song Ge. That video triggered Zhang Luping's breakdown, and they blame Chenbai for everything. Zhang Luping, it turns out, has a history of abusing girls and holds grudges against anyone Wei Shui interacts with. Songzhou's support may have protected Wei Shui from a different kind of encounter with him. The boy has been trapped inside for a while now. As for why he's still alive, Chenbai explains that the virus he used only weakened him. It wasn't lethal. Seeing the situation, Wei Shui comes up with an idea. Given how much of a creep the guy has been, it would be fitting if someone like Chenbai could help her return the favor. They share a kiss, while the weakened boy watches, an expression bitterly shouting out that Wei Shui was never his to claim. Chenbai is on his way somewhere when he suddenly receives a chat call from Song Zichong, who starts talking about an expert group that appears to be under his leadership, a pioneer group formed before the Doomsday. Chenbai confirms the news, and Song Zichong sees potential in future endeavors. He reminds her about a post he had asked her to monitor, one concerning this very group. However, he tells her not to think in terms of utility for now. Instead, he wants her to send him the details of the most discussed post about Group 001. He learns that the viral post suggests Chat Group 001 was created even before the apocalypse of the Blue Star. There's speculation that the Magares must have been evolvers even well before Doomsday. The post also mentions the leader of Group 002, who has a take of his own. Chenbai believes it's time to make Group 001 renowned. With the group discovered, he expects greater unity, honor, and the ability to gather them efficiently when necessary. All this while, Chenbai appears to be walking through a dead forest-like environment. Soon we see him standing in a place filled with skulls and skeletons, shrouded in an eerie atmosphere. The system prompt window alerts him that he has entered a secret village that worships demons. He recognizes this place from his previous life, where he once accepted an S-rank demon hunter transfer quest. His main task was to stop the villagers from summoning the demon, after which he could leave if he chose. However, if he wished to stay, the second task would be to kill all the contaminated villagers, and should he choose to stay further, he could kill the already summoned demons as well. He remembers blindly following a man named Chen Yiqiang, who had promised them a fair role with gold compensation under specific conditions. Chenbai had joined Chen Yiqiang's team, who had entered the secret land and deliberately allowed the villagers to summon demons, sacrificing their own squad in the process. The goal was to use the villagers' lives to weaken the demons, reducing them to a level Chen Yiqiang could handle with ease. By the time the deception was clear, it was too late. Chen Yiqiang had arranged for the evolvers who tried to flee to be hunted down. It turned into a brutal survival game, with betrayal and double-crossing leading to multiple pointless deaths. Only when the last person fell did Chen Yiqiang step in to battle the worn-out demon. Chenbai was the secret sole survivor and knew he couldn't reveal this truth to Chen Yiqiang's team. Doing so would have meant his own death. With extreme caution, he reached the edge of the hidden land, completing tasks 1 and 2, which allowed him the freedom to leave. Just as he was about to escape, the demon was defeated, and some of the reward points were surprisingly counted in his part. The ironic thing was that he even earned the central piece to the elaborate S-level rank scroll. Their deception had cost them the best of the loot. Naturally, this led Chen Yiqiang to hunt for the sneaky guy who had escaped with the scroll. But by then, Chenbai had already slipped away from the Wuchang area. In the present, the thought brings a smile to Chenbai's face. He would have loved to see the look on Chen Yiqiang's face. His expression soon changes when he spots the corpse of a contaminated villager. This means someone has already entered the realm before him. In his previous life, Chen Yiqiang had only attempted to clear this land 2 months from the present time, which makes Chenbai question who could have discovered the secret realm so early. It soon becomes clear that some of brother Chen Yiqiang's followers are already here, having cleared up to task 2 with plans to return later to kill the boss. Suddenly Chen Bai walks in on them, and Chen Yichang's men inform him about an outsider. They want nothing to do with him at this point. They warn Chen Bai that a level 11 beast is present, and soon, Chen Bai comes face to face with the demon. The creature speaks with arrogant confidence, mocking Chen Bai as someone who's walked straight into his own death. But Chen Bai has grown proud of himself, having taken down demon after demon in his past life, being aware of how each fiber of their muscle moves. Soon, Chen Bai's notification panel displays that Chen Bai has slain the level 11 boss, successfully completing Task 3. He's just taken down a C-grade demon. The others, who still haven't had a chance to leave, soon realize that Task 3 is now complete, and that they too have received a share of the points, similar to Chen Bai's earlier story. They discover that Chen Bai has devoured the demon's body, although he has cautiously avoided absorbing the bloodline factor. As the others return, Chen Bai asks them whether they've come back for the spoils. Chen Yichang claims the whole idea is ridiculous, insisting Chen Bai deserves most of the rewards since he was the one who took out the monster. Just for the fun of it, Chen Bai hands over all the earned rewards to Chen Yichang, including the level transfer mission scroll that Chen Yichang had so desperately wanted in the previous life. Even with the rewards right in front of him, Chen Yichang repeats that Chen Bai was the one who defeated the boss demon, not them. His teammates exchange skeptical looks, aware of the value of the level B and level A items now being divided among them. Chen Bai wants the conversation to keep going, thinking back to Chen Yichang's deceitful nature in their past life. Chen Yichang, on the other hand, seems interested in befriending Chen Bai, impressed by his ability to take down the boss beast single-handedly. He's been clearing the western outskirts of Wuchang and wants to avoid any overlap with Chen Bai's territory. Chen Bai tells him his region is Jiangchang, while Chen Yichang confirms he's working through the western outskirts, including a gym they took over a few days ago. Chen Yichang's goal is to clean up the perimeter soon, which, based on Chen Bai's past experience, translates to devouring and killing. Just then, Dreamy, also known as Meng Meng, messages Chen Bai, letting him know that evolvers have been going door to door searching for something and are about to reach her place. Chen Bai tells her not to let them in, suspecting they're clearing out both zombies and evolvers. The way Chen Bai talks to Chen Yichang after that makes it clear he's furious and done playing nice. His virus tentacles wrap around Chen Yichang, who screams in agony as he's devoured by Chen Bai. Also, Chen Bai can access his memories. But even with Chen Yichang's memory fragments, Chen Bai can't find a path to Dreamy, so he decides to keep one of Chen Yichang's teammates alive to act as a guide. Meanwhile, Meng Meng clutches a club bat, bracing herself against the fear of someone knocking at her door. The people outside threaten to break in if she doesn't open up by the count of 3. Meng Meng warns them that they're not welcome and that there will be consequences if they try to force their way in. Realizing she won't cave, the goons decide to act out. Meng Meng unleashes her destructive sonic wave form skill, but it comes at a steep cost, leaving her on her knees, nearly drained of energy and her voice. The attackers outside are likely deafened, but they manage to call for backup, knowing she won't be able to use such a powerful skill again anytime soon. Within 10 minutes, her door is struck again, this time more violently, and the intruders break in without waiting. Their voices are twisted and mocking, calling her sister in a disturbing tone. Meng Meng realizes she still has enough left to use her black flame ability, and with one final push, she sends them to hell. He remembers Chen once telling her that the 4 attributes work best in balance, and having one extremely high while the others are low isn't a strength, it's a weakness. This time, when the backup arrives, Meng Meng is dizzy and barely able to move, let alone fight back. The men outside sense her vulnerability and grow more sinister, fully aware that she's drained of energy. Meng Meng crawls toward the window, realizing it's better to risk it all than be caught by these jerks. But before she can make it out, they reach her. With the last bit of strength in her voice, she cries out for help. Suddenly, the window behind her shatters as a small figure rapidly grows larger. Chen Bai has arrived, breaking through the glass. Meng Meng, weak and breathless, apologizes for being a slow learner to her master. Chen Bai consoles her, assuring her she did well. But when he turns to face the intruders, the sheer intensity of his glare sends them stumbling back in fear. His presence alone flips the power dynamic, and the cowards flee without looking back. Chen Bai carries her to a nearby couch and gently places her down, realizing just how weak she is. The goons from Chen Yichang's settlement note the arrival of this other evolver. They convince themselves that they can overpower him if they all attack together. Moments later, however, the apartment walls and floors are shattered, evidence of the brutal beatdown Chen Bai has delivered. Meng Meng's condition is more urgent. She's barely conscious, likely hallucinating from exhaustion, migraines pulsing through her head. Chen Bai takes her hand to comfort her, only to be interrupted by one of the goons charging in with an axe. He sends the attacker flying into the wall with a crushing kick. An hour later, Meng Meng's condition seems to have improved. Meanwhile, the pile of bodies hasn't grown for a while, as no new attackers have entered for a while. Suddenly, Chen Bai hears footsteps from the corridor. He prepares to strike, only to recognize the man approaching. It's the same guide, Zhang Long, who had helped him navigate from the demon wasteland to Meng Meng's apartment. The man confirms the situation. Most of Chen Yiqiang's backup and accomplices have already been dealt with by Chen Bai. He had deliberately directed them to the apartment so Chen Bai could take them out. Chen Bai implies that means all of Chen Yiqiang's loyal subordinates have been taken out, leaving only those aligned with Zhang Long. Zhang Long, understanding what Chen Bai is arriving at, quickly clarifies that he's not aligned with anyone. He's a family man, scared for his life. The only reason he joined Chen Yiqiang was because he was being blackmailed. If he hadn't complied, his wife would have been raped, and his child would have been killed. Chen remembers Long was the only man who had warned him about the Demon 10. Paired with the man's raw talent, Chen Bai sees clear value in keeping him alive. He offers him asylum back in the Jiangsheng region. There's a look of disbelief and hesitation on Zhang Long's face, one that Chen Bai recognizes all too well. He doesn't want to act like a tyrant forcing Zhang Long into his service. Instead, he simply wants to extend his protection to Zhang Long and his family. More importantly, he wants to respect Zhang Long's freedom to choose. Turns out that Zhang Long's reluctance is actually coming from the enslaved families at Chen Yiqiang's settlement, who remind him of his own loved ones. Chen Bai understands his concern. He would have gladly taken those families in himself if moving the entire settlement to Jiangcheng wasn't such a logistical nightmare. So he offers an alternative. He asks Zhang Long to take over and manage the settlement on his own terms. With that, Chen Bai tosses him a sealed test tube containing a substance that can significantly boost his strength. He also sends him a friend request, asking to be updated once the situation stabilizes. It'll soon become clear whether Zhang Long can maintain things in the Wucheng area, or if relocating to Jiangcheng with his family is the better option. Once Zhang Long leaves, Chen Bai feels a nagging curiosity pulling at him. He checks his storage capacity and notices the mask he collected from the incinerator has changed its expression, right after he gave Zhang Long the vial. He's certain he didn't mutate the mask while storing it with other items. The only new additions since he last checked were the job transfer scroll and the demon blood. As he considers reorganizing his inventory, he realizes the mask seems especially reactive to the demon blood. Its eyes stay locked on those items, and its mouth gapes open as if trying to devour them. Since the demon components are mostly useless to him now, he decides to experiment. The fact that even Lord Leto desires this mask makes it all the more intriguing. Instead of the horrified expression the mask had moments ago, it now wears a disturbingly cheerful grin after being fed the demon blood, which creeps Chen Bai out a little. But then, the mask suddenly vomits something out. A notification pops up, informing him that the expelled clot is actually a condensed form of demon blood, purified through a special method. This revelation excites him. As long as he has access to demon blood, he now effectively holds the means to purify it and generate an endless supply of strength boosters at will. Chen Bai hasn't checked the demon transfer score yet, and neither has he seen the quest that would activate it. He soon gets around to that, and the notification panel informs him that he would need to enter the abyss, defeat 100 lower-level demons and 100 fallen demons to get the job done before leaving the abyss. Chen Bai sees this and has one thing on his mind. He wouldn't do it the hard way, and then still leave it far too quickly, like he had to leave the secret demon village wasteland. Chen Bai is occupied with this thought, still in Meng Meng's room with her resting on his lap, thinking about dealing with the scroll transfer mission. All of a sudden, Meng Meng gains consciousness and is ecstatic to see her master, hugging him tightly. Soon, they get talking about what happened to her and what can be done to never let it happen again. Meng Meng knows that her power in the real world is still too weak, and apart from that, she has already been through most of the monster dungeons in her dream world, leaving very few in the Wuchang area. She feels too weak to even find new dungeons, much less clear them. Chen Bai thinks it's a good idea if she follows him back to Jiangcheng City, as there are many dungeons to go around back home. Chen Bai asks her how she feels, both with respect to her health and about the opportunity he is offering her, and she feels really positive about both things. Suddenly, he picks her up in his arms out of nowhere and asks her to grab firmly, as they are going to move super fast, and the wind is going to cause quite a bit of pressure. He wants her to pat him if she feels it grow too much. And now, in a blink of an eye, they are standing in the forest just outside the secret entrance of the demon village. Chenbai explains to Meng Meng that one of the differentiating factors between dungeons and secret realms, like the one where the villagers worship the demons, is their entrances. Only secret realms that have been cleared will have entry prompts. It's therefore a risky affair for an evolver to wander into a secret realm. Dreamy understands and predicts that her master will soon ask her to attract the monsters. However, he reminds her that this is not the dream world, and every skill she uses should be a consequence of thorough thinking, not just some gut feeling. Next, he strictly commands her to stay at the entrance while he goes around and comes back. The mission task has been changed. Chenbai no longer just has to kill demons, but also has to kill all the demons' followers, and the dark priests as well. This is a handful because he is not getting any demon potions, something he recently learned how to utilize. Thus, he chooses to kill the boss first. Soon, one of the dark priests notes an intruder's entry. The dark priest threatens Chenbai to beware of trespassing. However, moments later, Chenbai is shown to absorb that same dark priest, meanwhile taking care of the rest of them as well. Now that he has his way to absorb the demon bloodline, Chenbai has all the more motive to go through with the task. As he moves into the stages, he realizes that the mini-bosses can also separate the bloodline potion, something that the normal monsters cannot. Dreamy is admiring her master, hoping that he didn't forget that he left her here. Suddenly, Chenbai calls for her to activate her most adept skill that she can think of, ensuring her that it won't do any damage to her. Dreamy lets her sonic deadly wave form out, killing contaminated villagers left and right, all ranging between level 10 and level 14, getting herself 2 attribute points. And just like that, she has reached a level of 6.5. Meanwhile, her master, Chenbai, has also reached level 9. Dreamy wants to celebrate, hugging her master, when suddenly they get a video call from Song Zicheng. Those on the other side don't look in good shape, and Song Zicheng asks for Chenbai's immediate help. It seems like Lord Leto has decided to enter the settlement, or at least someone who claims to be him. Chenbai is bamboozled, wondering why he got in and how he got the knowledge of the settlement. Song Zicheng understands by Chenbai's expression that he knows who the self-proclaimed goblin and trade god is. As always, Lord Leto has a business proposition. After examining the potential of the settlement for a day, he came to Song Zicheng to discuss a Silver City founding order as an investment. In return, he wants a Goblin Guild branch to be established in the elite part of the city after the order has gone through. A second condition he puts is that the guild will be free of all taxation. Chenbai sees lots of potential in this venture. A Silver City founding order is extremely rare, and considering that a city-state recognized by the will of the universe could serve valuable functions, it gets him thinking about the obvious positive outcomes it could have for the Downshine settlement. Song Zikyung knows what Chenbai's thinking. However, she points out a big problem. Even level A city orders usually get much attention from monsters, and the current settlement cannot risk facing so many attacks. The top of the list of problems is that Lord Leto wants the order to be executed, effective immediately, with the works getting started. Song Zicheng wants to delay this project for a single day, in which time Chenbai could come back. However, Chenbai lets her know that Leto's investment is in her, not in Chenbai. He tips her that she can sweet-talk him and mention Chenbai's name every now and then. However, Song Zicheng has to prove herself this time. Moments later, we see Chenbai showing all the items to Dreamy that can add to her physique, as he wants her to use as many of the items as she wants. The emergency at the settlement needs Chenbai to use his full speed to go back, something that he doesn't think Dreamy can handle in her current state. We soon see Meng Meng getting almost larger than Chenbai, wearing all the coats, mufflers, and hats that boost her physique to a 30, with the atmosphere defense that can be arranged with the given items. Back in the villa, Song Zicheng agrees to accept Lord Leto's investment, on which account Lord Leto commends her on how smoothly she's running the settlement with the Evolvers, dealing with all the adversities even in these early days of the trial. Song Zicheng straightaway goes for flattering the goblin and trade god for his appraisal, with Lord Leto coming back with even more remarks at Song Zicheng. Song Zicheng then goes on to mention how some of their inhibitors are big fans of Lord Leto and his guild, so much so that they have given up exploring the outside world and are returning after hearing of the Lord's arrival. Leto knows that not many Evolvers know about him or the Goblin cult, so it's admirable that much. He wants to know who the returning Evolver is. She, however, lets his name out way too quickly. even giving hints that Chen Bai is in charge of the settlement. Hearing this changes all the expressions on Lord Leto's mood, making him express that the silver founding city investment cannot work that way, as he had no idea that Chen Bai was the one in charge of it. It turns out that he is not canceling the investment. Instead, he is doubling down on his offer. He wants a Golden City founding order to be placed in the S-class. He has the utmost belief that Chen Bai's settlement, just like Chen Bai, can surely give big returns on investment. Song Zichong soon receives a notification of the investment mission. They have 1 day's time before the monsters around will get strengthened and go all out on the location of the city founding orders. If they are able to persist the siege of the monsters for 5 days, the task can be completed. The reward being that a 10-kilometer radius from the point of foundation will become a city area that even the will of the universe will recognize, with the bonus of a golden city construction reward. Even though this range is much larger than the area compared to an A-grade order, the danger too is just as much. Leto wants to know if Song Zichong agrees, and with the news of Chen Bai's upcoming arrival, she sees it fitting to accept the Goblin God's request. We fast forward to when Chen Bai has returned, and learn that the monsters have already started accumulating around the region. The first news that Chen Bai gets is that they have only 20 minutes to the siege, with the triple defense being the best she can do in such a short time, including the one facing being the top of the line. Song Zichong also lets Chen Bai know that they have scouted and cleared most of the area, completing the plague suit, which is almost ready. We see Meng Meng being placed in one of the resting quarters as the two continue talking. Chen Bai thanks Song Zichong for handling stuff, while Song Zichong, in all her playful mood, mentions how even in a situation like that, Chen Bai did not forget to bring a hot girl from Wuchang, teasing his perverted side. However, Chen Bai is very stringent about his apprentice Meng Meng, letting Song Zichong know that her abilities aren't inferior to his, as both of them are triple S evolvers. Chen Bai wants Song Zichong to relay the information to Song Ge that Song Ge is to take care of Meng Meng, as she is going to play a very key role in the defense of their settlement. It's time to face the monsters. Seeing the variety and the class of the zombies intrigues Chen Bai. In his previous life, his White Emperor City was only a B-class foundation, and the monster siege was nothing compared to what they are facing now. Standing on the wall and looking out onto the foot of the mountain, Chen Bai smiles as only 3 minutes remain before the siege properly commences. Meanwhile, Song Zichong has a vocal amplifier child beside her as she announces the 5-day and 5-night siege to the citizens. She asks the residents not to panic. They have hundreds of B-class evolvers, with even a dozen A and S rank innate ability holders, not to mention the 2 very powerful triple S rankers, being Meng Meng and Chen Bai. Song Zichong has full confidence in their resources, in their tactics, in their ever-so-strong wall, and their equally resilient resolve. It is only fitting that within 5 days, their settlement should be the best in the world. She wants all of them to join hands and get ready for the siege she announces is about to begin in exactly 1 minute. Chen Bai is impressed by that speech. He quickly makes sure that Lu Li has all the broadcast channels ready. With her making sure that all 5 of the cameras by the universe's will are in place, Chen Bai asks her to go live on the chat. Comments and discussions start coming in, while speculations, support, envy, and excitement upon reading the Gold City Foundation topic flood in. There is a countdown to the beginning of the siege, but we zoom into Song Ge and Song Zichong talking about why they did not take most of these zombies when they were still weak before the siege. The credit goes to Chen Bai, who thinks that strengthened monsters after the siege will give them more experience points and gold, as only their abilities aren't boosted by a factor of 3, but so are the rewards. As the siege begins, the monsters become stronger, and Chen Bai goes directly for the plague attacks so that infections can be spread. Although the rewards and spreading are on the weaker side, he still believes in the effectiveness of the move. But he suddenly notices something. Those zombies who are infected are separating themselves from the rest. While the others are also aware of which zombies are which, this can only mean one thing. There is a lord among the mass of monsters, which is why most of the zombie lumberjacks are generally in order, not trampling each other. If Chen Bai goes to find out the zombie lord, he would risk casualties as the frontliners will start to take down the evolvers. The one point that Chen Bai still has in his mind is that for the time being, the numbers are still limited, and once all directions are occupied by incoming zombies, he wouldn't be able to make sure that there are no casualties anyway. He understands that taking out the boss is as important as currently minimizing the casualties. It's about time they invoke Meng Meng, also known as Dreamy. Dreamy is woken up by Song Ge, who explains the entire matter to her. The subsequent chat between Chen Bai and Dreamy is very clear. She has to find the Lord in her dream world. He gives a full description of what the zombie Lord would look like. A humanoid being with a huge head, high shoulders, with a protective fine mesh exoskeleton extending down from his shoulders, from where tentacles also emerge. She is also alarmed about its strong mental powers. Dreamy understands perfectly what she has to do and asks Song-gae to not let anyone disturb her while she sleeps again. Song-gu is beyond confused about how a girl who had been sleeping for so long can immediately go back to sleep in a situation of a siege. Dreaming can see the zombies now that she is in her dream space, and uses her Dreamweaver ability to shower rocks at many of them before she gets ready to properly begin with her assignment by Master Chen Bai. Meanwhile, in the real realm, on the evening of the first day of the siege, Song Zicheong mentions to Chen Bai that only minor injuries have occurred and no casualties have taken place, especially because of Chen Bai's active methods. Song Zicheong assures Chen Bai that only marginal damages to the wall were sustained and that he can now rest while others take the watch. However, Chen Bai doesn't act like the situation is as under control as Song Zicheong is putting it. He explains to her that there are special types of zombies still out there that he was able to locate on the field. Although they are still very few in numbers, the Lord may have more up his sleeves that they might not be ready for. Amidst their conversation, Song-gae and Dreamy greet Master Chen Bai, who, upon getting a sight of Dreamy, asks Song Zicheong to instruct Lu Li to take her live stream elsewhere, as Dreamy's abilities are too exclusive to be exposed in a live stream. He then asks Dreamy whether she was able to locate the Lord. However, due to only slight fluctuations, she was only able to locate a general direction, considering that she doesn't have any tracking skills on her. Even though she is sorry, she still has a map to show for her work, and Chen Bai asks her not to apologize all the time despite her hard work. Dreamy has been able to locate around 200 to 300 special zombies, 2-meter tall, red-eyed, fat ones near the farmer's market. Dongshang Square was also surrounded by armless and jawless zombies. There are Whistler zombie reinforcements on the riverside of the TV tower. The streets of the shopping area of Ronghua are end-to-end filled with zombies with long arms. Chen Bai is able to assess some of them to be Stage 2 zombies, and Song Zicheong wants to know what is so special about Stage 2 zombies. Zombies in their second stage are at least a level 10 hazard. Individually, or even in their disoriented total, they're no match for Chen Bai. However, the problem is that there is a herd of thousands of them on a mission under a lord's command, with their unanimous goal being to massacre this settlement. The entire game is going to be about who can kill faster. Chen Bai even speculates that with single-mindedness, there is a high chance that only 10%, or a few percent higher than that, would survive in the settlement. Song Zicheong takes this seriously and wants to scout for people who can locate monsters and understand fluctuations. However, Chen Bai has a better idea, and we see him contact Han. We know Han Xiao only has a mental control ability, but Chen Bai has some sort of role for him too. The next day, Han is looking through the villa area and is charmed by it, even asking Chen Bai if he had no idea that it was such a treat, even though this is the dream realm. He even requests if he can have a villa too if he moves into the settlement. Chen Bai is totally on board with that. However, it's playtime, and they go to the TV station, where the only zombies that can breach the city wall, being the Whistlers, are all accumulated. That's why Chen Bai figures out that there is strong reason to believe these must be crucial pieces in the Lord's long-term strategy. Thus, he wouldn't want them killed. Chen Bai asks Han to get ready with the plan, to get ready to employ his powers. As Dreamy and Chen Bai take flight, Dreamy screeches to get the zombies' attention, but she gets a bit too much of it, as they jump towards her with incredible speeds, so much so that she doesn't think she can dodge in time. Fortunately, Chen Bai manages to protect his apprentice by unleashing the Hellfire attack he recently acquired. It's only a matter of time before he absorbs the last Whistler zombie, earning the corresponding rewards. Taking down 297 zombies in a single day is no small feat. However, Meng Meng is concerned. It's only the second day of the siege, yet numerous elite zombies have already gathered. While it makes sense that speed-type zombies from across Yangcheng City and nearby towns would arrive quickly, the real concern is that they're all operating under the Lord's leadership. This means every assault on the wall will be highly coordinated and dangerous. Before that happens, the Lord must be taken out. Scattered waves of reckless zombies might do minimal damage, but organized strikes are an entirely different threat. Just as they consider clearing out another zone, a dagger nearly strikes Chen Bai. It turns out to be one of Han's, carrying a message. The Lord's position, his coordinates, has been located. The team regroups at their rendezvous point, and Han is visibly thrilled. Chen Bai is equally excited to have finally pinpointed the elusive, sinewy figure that emits psychic fluctuations across the region. But before Han can express just how eager he is to face the Lord, Chen Bai insists that the confrontation happen in the real world, so he can broadcast it. Apparently, Chen Bai isn't one to shy away from attention. Still, he doesn't stop Han from pushing forward. He gives him the green light to head to a second zone and clear out some Stage 2 elite zombies. These are spiritually evolved types, and while dangerous, their main threat lies in their piercing screams, something the two of them are willing to endure. Next, we enter the hazy northern region, a mountainous terrain where our hero has just arrived. Even without using his sensory skills, Chen Bai can feel the presence of the villainous lord. The evolved virus carries a stench he can detect instinctively. His suspicions are confirmed when hunters of elite speed type ambush him. Chen Bai is forced to act weak, intentionally slowing the battle. He pretends to be overpowered, allowing the bodyguards to dominate, until he slips into the background and counterattacks. He makes it seem like he landed a lucky back kick, an instinctive move that turns the tide. In the end, he defeats and absorbs both bodyguards. Later, his hand claws evolve into a new form, sharp and sleek like a praying mantis, with knife-like blades jutting out, thirsting for a kill. This new transformation is called the blade form. A sudden sharp sensation from behind pulls Chen Bai's focus. The Lord doesn't hesitate to face the one who murdered his pride. The boy, bold and cocky, lands the first strike. Chen Bai at first thinks the boss is weaker than expected. Then, out of nowhere, he's caught in an intense hug from Song Zichong. Chen Bai is momentarily stunned. Following Song Zichong are all his hot friends with benefits from the villa, arriving to congratulate him on defeating the Lord. From Chen Bai's expression, it's clear he feels overwhelmed, maybe even elated. But within moments, his inner monologue pierces through the illusion. He realizes this is no victory parade. The Lord has carefully exploited his emotional weaknesses. With focused effort, Chen Bai breaks the hallucination and clears his mind. Despite casting a formidable illusion of his own, the Lord fails to overcome Chen Bai's innate sense of judgment. A strange mix of confusion and disbelief appears on the zombie lord's face, as Chen Bai silently credits him with possessing only a strong mental ability, one that now seems diminished when confronted by his own, sharper intellect. The live broadcast of the fight issues between the monster zombie and our boy, with comments forming in real time. Some even call it a scam, others speculate about what the illusion was, while some of them commend the battle focus of Chen Bai, somewhat believing that this Lord Zombie is most likely a joke. Soon, the battle broadcast camera changes from the fight between Chen Bai and the Lord to the battlefield on the other side of the wall. On the change of the active stream camera, we see large zombies surrounded by smaller ones, with the giant ones using some of the smaller zombies as an alternative to the spike clubs that trolls use. The zombies try to launch themselves over the wall. However, Song Zichong asks her men to stay firm and use and counter it. Many B-level and C-level evolvers that can manifest the form of weaponry, defense, and long-range combat shove their abilities head-on into the zombies' vile throats. However, one of those screaming-type monsters restrains these warriors for a moment. Bad news that the fourth sector wall has been breached is also rumored, with the raw mass of the zombies being thrown at it. Song Zichong is showing why she was a decisive leader in Chen Bai's previous life, as she asks them all to keep calm when she manifests one of the giant ninja blades to take on a large number of zombies all at once. Those watching admire her, with perverts crushing on her as well. On the other stream, criticism starts surrounding Chen Bai's methods, as he has been seen fighting a large henchman of the Lord, which sort of indicates that he waited for the Lord to summon his subordinates. This huge zombie, namely Chaser, is equivalent to the Lord Zombie's attributes. One of the commenters explains how Chen Bai is first going to take down the Lord because his psychic attacks might turn out to be detrimental. The highlights before Chen Bai pulls off anything special are that the monster the Lord tries to devour him using his psychic attacks, and Chen Bai uses his apostate flames, and then the blades, to take out the Lord. Once he slices the Lord through its defenses, he can face the Chaser without ignoring it. Chen Bai can immediately feel that the plague he instilled into the Chaser has almost taken over the zombie after their first exchange of blows. Seems like Chen Bai has got himself some really spicy rewards this time. To top that off, he's got stuff that he can combine to make compound equipment even spicier. Everybody in the comments section is going crazy about the loot he has got. He has a C-level biohazard, the Lord's Brain, which can control 3 beings lesser than one's own self. The mutated Tyrant Bones, to get a short-term bonus on the attribute. The Apostate's Heart, which unleashes a mental magnetic field that is both offensive and defensive at the same time. Perhaps the most unusual reward is the catastrophic evolution equipment, which has a rare forge effect. The notification panel lets him know that if he kills 100,000 biohazard hostile targets, this already sweet equipment would turn into a grow-type weapon. Even Chen Bai cannot get his head around all of this complex stuff he has earned. He simplified it to the basics. He doesn't know if even with these achievements, the black light virus can enhance beyond what it already is. It's time to find out. Even with all of these things, though, he simply puts his mind to devouring all of his victims and gets a new form of the black light virus. He is asked to open the black light virus awakening panel and skill panel. We can see his total unlocked abilities: the claw form, the earth spike form, the swift slashing form, the formless killing blade, the heavy hammer form, a beginner earthquake strike, skull crushing strike, whip form, and shield mode. Meanwhile, his arm shield and muscle strengthening, along with some unknown skills, are left to be unlocked. In a different category of moves, we see his trees of skills. He has flying over walls and surf speed, converging to an air dash, thermal tracking and his virus tracking, converging to something unknown, and his earth spike, converging to his advanced energy spike, which further emerges into the Taijian spike. Chen Bai simply wants to invest all of his exclusive evolution points in the black light virus. No complications. He then wears the gloves that can evolve into the growth-type weapon he was notified of anytime soon. With all the devouring and skill upgrades taken care of, he uses his air dash, which consumes physical strength to sprint or change direction in the air. The physical strength consumption goes up with the number of consecutive uses. Thus, we get a thorough update of what Chen Bai is capable of. Elsewhere, in a surveillance room, Lu Li has taken note of the fact that Chen Bai has taken care of the Lord and relays the information to good old Song Zichong. Lu Li brings all the streaming cameras to the battlefield at the siege. In the meantime, we are shown Suxin healing Song Zichong for any damage she might have received. We learn how diligent Suxin has been, considering her dark circles indicating she hasn't had any rest. Song Zichong wants her to rest since that's the only way they can have an after-siege party in glory. Else, the sisters won't have the necessary juice to please Lord Chen Bai. Suddenly, they receive intel from Qinling Yu that things are not looking up. The zombies have, although lost the Lord, but have developed some innate hostility towards the settlement. Even though they are not under command, they look as though all their hostilities are unanimous in breaching the settlement's wall, with 3 areas almost being compromised. The compromised areas are the West 6 to West 8, where even their tank's firepower is utterly useless in forcing the enemy to fall back. They suddenly contact Wei Shui to learn that the Western 6th section wall can only hold up for a maximum of 3 minutes. The rate at which the zombies are eating the monster wall and its blood is far greater than its regenerative powers. We zoom in to see Wei Shui, whose eyes look like they're bleeding due to her relentless use of abilities to zoom in on the battlefield and its real conditions. Song Ziqiong has a smile on her face, a testament to her optimism. Song Ziqiong asks Qinling Yu to now tend to Wei Shui while she heads to the battlefield. Meanwhile, things aren't looking up too well on the battlefield, with Song Ge and Lang Xuan going all out. Even though one of the evolvers has brought more people to help, and they're going par to par with the zombies, the numbers are just too much. All of a sudden, a swift slashing takes out a large number in just one flash. Song Ge is reminded by an all-too-familiar voice that Lang Xuan had asked her to stay back, yet she stubbornly walked onto the battlefield. Song Ge can recognize that playful bullying anywhere. She announces with newfound energy that the Lord is dead and that Chen Bai has arrived. This in turn rejuvenates everyone's lost passion. On Chen Bai's orders, all men and women advance to kill the zombies, to cleanse them for good. We fast forward to 4 days later. Chen Bai is sorrowful about the casualties and the damage the city has endured to protect itself. Song Ziqiong seconds this as they had overestimated their own resolve and abilities. If it weren't for Meng Meng or Chen Bai, this would have been a lost cause. Just then, they hear a familiar voice asking them to be happy. It's the goblin and trade god Leto. According to Leto's calculations, the death toll is a fraction of what he had imagined. And besides that, they were able to complete the mission as well, making this land the first to establish a city-state since Doomsday. A system-wide notification flashes across everyone's screens. The S-level Gold City Foundation has officially begun. Chen Bai asks Song Ziqiong to take him to the designated location, set at the base of Dongshan Mountain. A massive orb materializes, drawing the attention of onlookers. Some instantly grasp its purpose, while others are left in confusion. Despite the alert clearly stating that this orb is the heart of the city, and only the evolver Song Zicheng has the authority to interact with it, someone still reaches out to touch it, right before Chen Bai and Song Zicheng arrive. This location isn't random for the founding city's core. Song Zicheng had already dispatched her experts to evaluate the site and carefully map out its potential. The terrain includes a mountain-surrounded plain, space for critical infrastructure, and resource distribution. Even the transportation systems have been carefully considered. Chen Bai notes how thorough Song Zicheng has been, but she isn't done yet. There's one last task she feels compelled to complete before Lord Leto departs. She wants Chen Bai to be officially recognized as the Lord of the city. Leto has invested in her, and she has full autonomy as long as it doesn't harm the prospects of the guild. The universe's will responds in acknowledgement, granting Chen Bai the authority to use the city's heart. From now on, the city will be known as Esuro 1, the White Emperor's city. It's time for Chen Bai to step into his new identity, the White Emperor of the city. Almost instantly, the will of the universe presents him with the privileges and an optional feature. Hostile forces within the city would have their attributes halved. Song Zicheng, meanwhile, receives the topmost management position, and her attributes surge by 80%. An announcement declares Chen Bai's achievement to all, awarding him 10 reputation points for being lord to the establishment of the first S-level city. His followers erupt in chants of his name. Leto announces his investment has reached its end. He prepares to leave but gives a parting reminder. Chen Bai still has a mission to complete. Chen Bai, in turn, reminds him that this mission is no easy walk in the kids' park. He's basically been designated the highest difficulty possible, something Lord Leto knows. With Leto gone, Chen Bai grants Song Zicheng access to the reward he just received, a gold-level city-building prize. It's no ordinary tool. It's a Galaxy-class supercomputer, the most advanced in the universe, something Song Zicheng can fully integrate into city planning. From public transportation to exclusive infrastructure, everything from now on will be next level. Still, with the world in such a fragile, almost broken state, no one knows exactly what all this tech will be used for. Chen Bai, however, is confident. He's certain that the weapons and infrastructure they create now won't resemble anything from the pre-apocalyptic or siege era. The design philosophies need to evolve. New instincts must guide their thinking. He's well aware that the current city management systems are flawed. The access to the likes of the S-level blueprint they now have, such as a biological backup center that can clone a person's body and essentially provide a second life, along with a host of other features, is resounding for Virus King City, will be the floating city of the future. Soon after, Meng approaches her master. She brings news of 3 new abilities she's acquired from the dream world: Dream Totem Enchantment, white noise that can trigger dreams; sleepiness, a seemingly vague power but one that can be harnessed for manipulating those dreaming with suggestions; Inception, the third ability enhances her control. She can now freely enter or exit dreams, either returning herself to reality or bringing someone else back. It's almost like teleportation, at least within the dream realm. Her skill set is truly impressive, but in statistics, she still has room to grow. She's aware of this and asks her master for training. They decide to begin training near the mountain. Chen Bai tells Meng to feed there while he meets her shortly, and asks Song Zicheng to gather individuals across various spiritual power levels so they can help evaluate Meng's new abilities. Song Zicheng agrees but doesn't want Chen Bai to be out too late. Everyone is preparing to thank him later that night, and she adds that Song Ge has something special planned just for him. It's after siege party time. We see all the girls residing in the villas, except Meng Ming and Ling Shuang, half naked in bed with Chen Bai. This time Song Zicheng sits next to him. Chen Bai wants to know where Dreamy is, and Song Zicheng informs him that she's still training herself, probably in the dungeon nearby. Chen Bai wants to see her after his harem party comes to an end. After the fun ends, he has some important business to tend to in the dream world. Song Zicheng realizes that after the experience from the siege, they should get tips from Chen Bai. And all the other girls, namely Wei Shuwei, Qinling Yu, Song Ge, and Su Xin, agree. He thus goes one by one in hopes to analyze their skills and abilities, and follow it up with advice. Perhaps Song Ge is the most eager to take advice, and perhaps the one who is the most bullied by Chen Bai. Chen Bai talks to her mother, Song Zicheng, about her A-ranking skills. Song Zicheng thinks that her amethyst weaponry is going to serve her well. Meanwhile, Chen Bai thinks that she is a queen, not a warrior. Even her focus on spirit enhancement should be secondary. Her primary focus should be on her amethyst evolution. Her amethyst profound and noble eyes should be able to scan attributes and intentions. She should be well versed when she meets eye to eye with multiple people she is dealing with. She has an unleashed potential to see through attributes and even control minds if she is able to master her talents. If someone tries to make eye contact with her, she has the ability to trap them in a confused state, with them losing their direction. Song Ziqiong finds this magnificent. Next up, Chen Bai goes for Wei Shui's A-level skill. She has only 2 skill trees, but that hardly matters. Her threat view is already devastating. If she can unlock the See What I See skill, she can even share her highlighted vision with her mates, something that is a god-level support in the battlefield. Next, he goes on talking about Lu Li and her image skills, something that can help her create miracles. It is very weird that her skill doesn't have any sort of damage detail to it. It's called recognizing the false as true. The strange ability can make the illusion of the enemy a reality. As an example, Chen Bai takes a nuclear bomb, for instance. If the enemy starts believing that it's a real bomb, it will blow up to produce real damage. Although this should be an invincible skill according to the others, seeing through imagery is quite easy. It only depends on the wielder's cunningness and ingenuity to actually make it work properly. The half-naked ladies are still stunned at this out-of-the-world ability that their sister possesses. Su Xin's B-level rapid recovery ability, that she can use once stamina, flesh and blood, and spirit are evenly and actively used, is nothing like Chen Bai has ever seen. He moves on to Qin Lingyu's ability of concentration. Away from her knowledge of law, she can actually take this focus to the battlefield, and if she's totally focused, diligent about beating the enemy, this can be a god-level skill for her. This enchants Qin Lingyu enough to get her focused on satisfying her master. However, Chen Bai doesn't like the animosity that just took over. He nudges her back to her senses, and reminds her that she has no control over what she wants to focus on, which could prove fatal for her on the face of the battlefield. Finally, it's time for Song Ge. Chen Bai first taunts Song Ge a couple of times, and then goes on to point out that her ability of intelligence, even though weak, can help her out if she maxes out the collection of skills. As a result of the resourcefulness, her attributes will grow tenfold, and she already has an advantage of having a 10 times better learning curve than the rest. If she gets onto the job, she can quickly become really powerful. He doesn't leave out the fact that with the given amount of time, enough for her to actually learn the proper postures and positions, she might come close to Chen Bai's physical strength, but she might conquer him in other battlefields. Once Chen Bai's finished, Song Ziqiong gives all of them a pep talk and a goal for each of them to improve their skills. Suddenly, Leng Shuang walks in, and she wants tips on key abilities as well. We shift to scenes where Han suddenly wakes up and gets a sight of Master Chen Bai, which means that he's in Dream World. Poor old Dreamy had to transport her master a very long way, making her dizzy. A sudden depletion of mental power has been quite common for Dreamy, and so Chen Bai asks her to rest. Han and Chen Bai talk about the foundation of the Golden City. Chen Bai forgot to ask earlier on how many attribute points did Han and Dreamy get for a reward for building a city, as they had a huge role in killing multiple elite-level zombies. Turns out that all of the Whistler zombies together screamed out in unison, which led to Han, who was already using his mental power, to drop dead instantly. Chen Bai isn't obviously proud of this, but he eases the conversation by changing the topic of Group 01. Chen Bai doesn't want him telling anyone that he's within the Pioneers, something that Han has obviously kept quiet about. Dreamy and Chen Bai are the only people who know. Confirming that, they move out to scout. The plague seal on Chen Bai's hand has been emitting fluctuations all day, ever since Han pointed out the whereabouts of the chemical house. We see the site of the mask once again. Chen Bai was reluctant to use it back in Zhangcheng City, because Leto was involved there for a while. This mask can actually turn bloodline portions to a purified S-level essence. The great thing about the mask is that there is no compulsion for any continuous use of it. As he is gathering his thoughts about the mysterious artifact, Han points at a green mist erupting from some place at a distance. On a plus side, Han even knows the ins and outs of the chemical factory, and he's been aware of it since before the trials began. It's where his dad used to work. Han has been acting all goofy ever since explaining to Master Chen Bai that he fell dead in their last quest. Han gets the creeps from the chemical factory as they get closer. Instead of allowing him closer to himself, Chen Bai's advice to Han is to stay at least 10 meters or beyond away from him if he wants to stay safe. Quite the counterintuitive advice. Chen Bai motivates him to take him to where his father used to work. We see Han wearing a very creepy infection mask, reluctantly agreeing to Chen Bai's commands. It appears that the seal of the plague is glowing and emitting more fluctuations than ever, so much so that the notification panel alerts him of the plague quest. He is notified that this place has been under mutation for a while now. In the instructions of the Plague Factory A-level quest, the objectives are to find the source of the mutation. Among the high rewards is the Bacterial Cultivation A-level skill. Chenbai is ready to go in, even though he's going into the cesspool of viruses. We learn that once Chenbai had gained level 10 attributes, his virus control also grew stronger. Although not explicitly mentioned to him, all microorganisms, such as viruses, within a 10-meter radius are fully in his control. He can feel it. Han suddenly breaks Chenbai's train of thought by pointing out a large mutated mosquito. Chenbai immediately manifests his blade arm and slashes the tiny monster into two. Although he's a pervert for virus-infecting places and creatures, he despises mosquitoes. Han is sharp to know that the mosquito was probably protecting the mushroom it was lingering over. Suddenly, Chenbai stops him from growing any closer to the mushroom. The easiest death he can get is to take a sniff at it, where his lungs would collapse in seconds, giving him the smoothest unnatural death. Han would have listened to him anyway, but Chenbai just creeped Han out even more. He feels that the mushroom, although not the source of the plague, has bacterial and virus collaborations in its makeup. Rather than keeping it as an artifact, Chenbai decides to eat it. Poor Han has to be vigilant throughout, while his master is having lunch. Chenbai obviously has to think about numbers. A single bite from the mushroom has more virus nutrition, as he would call it, compared to several elite zombies that he can absorb. Next on their bucket list is where Han's dad used to work, in the employee dormitory. Han cannot pinpoint anything that would help his old heritage mission, and so Chenbai invites him to solely help him out, although he has to be even more careful about the orders that Chenbai relays to him. The two soon narrow in on the sewage disposal tank, where the maximum concentration of viruses seems to come from. There are two very large center pools there. Although Han's been there once, he recalls getting dizzy inside. However, the landscape is much different than what Han remembers. There are these super huge mushrooms with weird mutated bugs around them. Chenbai immediately asks Han to wrap himself inside his psychic energy as a primary mode of defense against the plague. Soon they hear a crazy Saint Sermon-type voice, summoning the children of the cult and the followers of the plague. Chenbai doesn't want to waste a single breath and rushes to stab the saint in his chest. However, even his high-ranking blades cannot lay a scratch on the saint. This is definitely head and shoulders above the defense of an A-rank boss. The saint suddenly starts to praise his god and supplicates to him to extend the effects of the holy plague throughout the world. However, Han can only see him kneeling, seeing the A-level boss and other creatures sort of submitting themselves to good old Master Chenbai. The boss rejoices in devotion, expressing himself, Pukasumi, ready to sacrifice every fiber of his being to serve Chenbai, soul, life, eternal service, and whatnot, explicitly bowing down to him alone. This guy is introduced as the Plague Bishop Pukasumi Yisrael, who is on level 71. The unheard, unseen level 71 dumbfounds our heroes. Chenbai speculates that Puka is probably a third transformation saint. By what Chen remembers from his previous life, he could go to a maximum of 79. It is unbelievable how within a very short span of the trial, this person has already reached level 71. He even questions himself how the D-ranked spiritual senses that Dreamy gifted him could even sense the name and class of the saint. Chenbai confirms from Pukasumi if he is truly the one he wishes to serve. He expresses how, by the sacrifice of the high priest, Chenbai was able to make an appearance after acquiring the plague seal. The saint has no one doubt that Chenbai must be the plague god. Chenbai already finds his Plague King exclusive storyline far better than Han's family drama storyline. The disciples wish to individually provide any plague treasure that can match their newly discovered god's strength. Although they are unable to directly transfer the treasure to him because of the will of the universe trespassing on the god anomaly, these guys have literally sacrificed way too much to enter the trial the earliest, to give the plague god the upper hand. Chenbai understands the constraints they have, and Pukasumi bows down at his god's wisdom. However, Chenbai does want a transfer of job scrolls. Within no time, the faithful servant presents the level S Plague Knight, the level S Zergmaster, and then the double S level Doom Prince scroll. Han can already feel the animosity seeing such precious items. Chenbai, however, wants to know if there are any triple S level scrolls that the Shwimi might have. The saint, stunned, presents the bottleneck to the Lord. In such an early stage of the trial, it's almost impossible to get hold of a triple S profession. Most gods get an S level or a double S level profession at best, but a triple S level is unheard of. Chenbai isn't fazed by what the saint has to reason. He wants nothing below a triple S job transfer scroll. Pukasumi exclaims in emotions, looking at their new god's passion. Chen Bai isn't one to waste time and already thinks about where he can get it. When suddenly, the saint stops that train of thought. There is still a way to get a triple S scroll, or there might be at least a chance. It sounds like there is no guarantee about anything. The added problem is that Chen Bai would have to retrieve it on his own. The plague cult can open a portal to the greatest plague event in the history of Blue Star. If Chen Bai is able to procure the seeds of that plague from history, he can condense them into making a triple S level transfer job scroll. The sheer point that there is a probability of getting the scroll means Chen Bai is up for it. Pukazumi bows down, offering his utter devotion to the new god. Suddenly, his chanting turns into screaming as he transforms into something very large. The notification window already asks Chen Bai whether he would like to enter the exclusive secret dungeon of the Howling of 80 million souls. What's surprising is that the timing of the dungeon entrance is within 3 minutes. Chen Bai definitely doesn't want to take Han on what would be a suicide mission. The expression on Han's half-masked face tells the story of how wise Chen Bai's speculations are. A top-of-the-line boss just sacrificed his life to open this dungeon, and he wouldn't dare walk into that death trap. Moments later, Han can be seen chatting. Some of the others on the Pioneer chat group, Chat 001, are occupied, and so need Chen Bai and Han to lend them a hand. However, Chen Bai obviously doesn't have the time, so they resort to frustration in fun threats. Han has to explain the entire matter to them, summarizing it for these other guys. The others understand the utter shenanigans their boys have gotten themselves into by the fact that Chen Bai's invincible blade attack did nothing to the robed Saint Puka. Those guys talk about how Chen Bai is on a very different level of aptitude and demands, with a saint's sacrifice satisfying his thirst. However, Han scolds them for comparing themselves to the super smoking gun 001, Master Chen Bai. On the other side of the portal, the hourglass around Chen Bai's neck can be seen reacting for some reason, emitting light. He finds himself at the outskirts of a city with peak Roman architecture and realizes that his mission is in Rome, Florence, the city of art. However, rather than seeing the city swarmed by Romans, he finds most of it empty. It isn't until he patrols for quite a while before he sees someone coughing in an alleyway. It looks like a homeless person who, upon seeing Chen Bai, asks him to stay away. Chen Bai feels bad for the plague-infected person. He decides to extract the Black Death virus out of the person. This opens up a quest notification instructing him to collect the seeds of plague of the Howling of 80 million souls. He now understands that the quest is regarding the Black Death that is going to take 80 million lives. What Chen Bai has to do is collect the seeds, which would be converted into a rare plague job transfer scroll at the end of the mission. Chen Bai isn't clear what the plague seeds are or what collecting them would actually mean. The coughing person realizes that the punishment by the gods has been lifted and calls Chen Bai the messenger of God. It turns out to be a pretty girl who wishes to become his disciple. Chen Bai can use some followers and fame at this point, something he doesn't want to miss out on. He needs someone to inform him about what's been going on. The girl wishes to ask her new master which god's messenger he is. However, Chen Bai is the plague god himself. He asks the girl to be his messenger instead, and wants her to spread the word that he can cure the plague in the Lord's Square if they wish to meet him there. We see this girl running across the streets and alleyways, exclaiming that the god of plague at the Lord's Square is there to cure the plague. Though the residents figure out it's Elena, and seeing her healthy while walking outside makes those affected by the plague hopeful. Meanwhile, others think she has lost her mind due to the Black Death's effect. She exclaims how her father, Henry the Merchant, gave up all his belongings to the church, and still, his family died. She wants everybody to see that she is healed. She hears a faint voice from one of the houses questioning if she is actually telling the truth. In her defense, she has been announcing her throat out without even a single cough, which in itself should be proof of her getting healed. She reassures everyone that this isn't about donations or sacrifice, and people start coming out, checking her temperature to make sure. The expression on their faces speaks for itself. Soon, we see our hero wearing what seems to be a rooster mask, thinking about the 14th century Black Death that killed 25 million people locally and 80 million globally. Chen Bai doesn't know how he'll manage traveling the whole world, when soon he sees a small crowd being led by Elena and asks the children to approach him without fear. At first, they see the virus tentacles with an expression of alarm, but soon they can feel their strengths coming back. Realizing that their children have been healed, most of them are crying and embracing each other. Those cured celebrate the miracle and thank the Lord of Light of the Holy Church. Elena nags at the idiots, scolding them for their train of utter nonsense. They're told that this is the great god of plagues doing, not the church's god of lights. People want to devote themselves to Chen Bai, but he knows that the plague has done damage to their bodies, and there are children still under the effect of the plague elsewhere in the city. He wants them to return and rejuvenate themselves rather than wasting their time here. Elena wants to head them back, with the strong motivation of ending the plague in Florence. Suddenly, they hear the Knights of Vatican are approaching the Lord's Square. The knights belittle the people for running away to follow a fraud who claims to be the god of plague. Plagues are punishment from the true god. Chen Bai isn't angry. He sees this as an opportunity. With swords in hand, 3 knights fearlessly stab Chen Bai right in the gut, asking the sinners to repent for falling to a pseudo-god. However, once they turn around, they see Chen Bai unscathed, as though nothing hit him. Meanwhile, the crowd around sees this miracle. Elena picks a stone up against the knights. However, Chen Bai stops her because he is not hurt. Elena knows that no mere mortal blades can do anything to him, but the knights should be punished for attacking. She even invokes Chen Bai to bring down a divine punishment. Chen Bai doesn't present himself as a resentful god, but a merciful one. He doesn't consider people like the knights as a threat to him. He expresses his only determination to end the plague, regardless of how many swords are raised against him. This gets the crowd cheering for him as they embrace their new god of plague. The knights realize that they have civil disobedience on their hands. Chen Bai has been around these parts for only 3 days and has taken their hearts by storm. At the church, the bishops talk about how ill the decision was to let only 3 knights be sent to take care of this new plague god. Bishop Hacken blames Archbishop John for his reluctance to take drastic measures when necessary. Bishop John, however, stands by his decision, bringing Bishop John's attention to what Chen Bai has been up to. He appeared out of nowhere and eradicated most of the citizens' plague. Although only 5 knights are left, few to even protect them, they couldn't possibly have prepared for a man that helps masses heal and resist what's killing them. His disciples have no compulsion of any sort. Moreover, Chen Bai brings ingenuity like the germ theory and hygiene he keeps talking of. Hacken is beside himself. John has no concern for the Church of Light or the Lord. John doesn't feel it's their place to take care of the Lord. He writes to the Pope of the happenings in Florence. Meanwhile, Chen Bai has finally been able to condense a plague seed. The situation isn't looking up, though. He has nearly eliminated the plague only to get a negligible fraction of the mission done. He gets the plague pillar as a reward, where followers with plague can be baptized to get rid of the plague. He realizes he'd have to go around the world after all. In a public appearance, he relays the details of the temporary plague pillar that can take the Black Death away if anyone is still in effect. Chen Bai has to leave, however, and informs that he'd eventually leave the world for good after the plague has been made obsolete. Reminding them about the teachings of the plague cult and the science of microbiology, he wishes them good luck to live with prosperity. Chen Bai leaves Elena in charge. As he leaves, he can hear the masses chant his teachings. Although anti-fanatic at core, Chen Bai does need the deep faith and roar that can get his message through as he collects plague seeds. The name of God that expedites a 10-year-long process otherwise, to a game of a few days. We're then shown a knight bowing down to the Pope, being told about the failure of the expeditions. Consequently, the plague has emerged at the hand of demons. The Pope tells Master of the Templar Knight, Sorum, about a pagan who came from Florence claiming he can eradicate the plague. Sorum predicts it to be a scam, but is dumbfounded to hear that the new pagan god was successful in doing so. The Pope, however, believes Chen Bai is a demon. That is how demons operate. They first create the problem and then show that they can solve it to lead people astray and stop them from ascending to the heavens. Sorum is visibly outraged. The Pope gives him a special spear that he can use to slay the demon for the sake of the Church and for the sake of the Lord. As he has made his way into Vatican City, the Pope has somehow managed to get Chen Bai to the square. Meanwhile, we skip back to where Chen Bai is being welcomed by a little boy who claims he has heard tales of the eradicator of the plague and wants to tell everybody of his arrival. It's really weird, ironic even, since his tales have taken flight, other churches and cities have been either blocking him or shunning him altogether. Meanwhile, the base camp of all churches is somehow welcoming him with open arms by sending someone who doesn't even have the plague. He understands what they want to do. They want to kill him. Them trying to take him head-on is exactly what Chen Bai needs to resolve problems at the Vatican. Crowds begin to gather with murmurs about the Vatican to judge a demon creature that can treat the plague, while others are skeptical of how and why a plague remover can be judged, etc. Soon we see Sorum with the Spear of Longinus, announcing to Chen Bai that the Lord God has decreed the Pope to have him killed. Chen Bai recognizes their adversary's dressing and understands who he's up against. Chen Bai is ready to take the stage by storm. He announces that he's a plague eradicator, and those who dare to say that the Lord God has decreed for him to be killed are doing a disservice. The Pope announces how he is a demon from the abyss, using his sinister ways to take people astray. Speculations within the crowd arise, questioning if the plague remover is genuine, and if so, shouldn't those infected be cured first? The Pope senses this and condemns Chen Bai on the top of his lungs. If he'd remove the plagues only, God would have mercy on him. However, the Pope follows it up with accusations that Chen Bai's true intentions are to bewitch souls amidst treatment so they might fall to hell. Sorum has visible disgust for Chen Bai and charges at him viciously to attack him with the spear. However, it only takes Chen Bai's index finger to stop it, and he announces Sorum is tainting himself using the spear that has already taken the Son of God to shed even more blood. Chen Bai then uses the Pope's logic against him. His logic is that those who stop the plague from being eradicated are true demons, with the Pope being one. Chen Bai has a plan. He quickly charges to attack the Pope, leaving everybody dumbfounded by what he's done. However, Chen Bai stands on top of the Pope, asking him to show his true self. By the time there could be an uproar from the fans of the Pope, he has already turned into a zombie-like demon. It is just how Chen Bai had planned. The demon essence from earlier took quick effect to transform the Pope into a demon. Chen Bai basically mixed the demon blood and the zombie essence as a precautionary measure to take advantage of the situation presented to him on a silver platter. The masses are horrified. Soon the Pope demon throws fire at Chen Bai to punish him. The picture is so vivid. The Pope has horns, can throw fire, looks demonic. He must be the devil himself. Perhaps the most distorted is Sorum. Chen Bai realizes that the Pope's body cannot take the demon genetics and invokes divine punishment in a spectacular fashion, condemning those who want to stop him from preventing the destruction and freeing those suffering from the plagues. Suddenly, the Pope demon coughs blood. Before long, he explodes. Sorum is on his knees, repenting for being blinded by the Pope demon. Chen Bai tells him that God will not punish humans, and all he's come to do is take the plague away, so there is no vengeance. He's free. With just that minimal effort, the church goes into decline, and the plague cult rises. This evens out the difficulties of entering plague-infested areas, as everybody wants Chen Bai to eradicate their plagues. We see Chen Bai traveling through Africa, Asia, and even Oceania, walking into different cultures, ethnicities, and races continuously for 1.5 years. Clearing up a hell-like dungeon in one day is easy peasy, but to spend almost 2 years of your life until the plague pillar has completely absorbed the plague seed is an entirely different story. It's time for Chen Bai to return home. A notification window asks whether he wants to collect all the plague seeds from the pillar. The people look on in admiration, bidding farewell to their god. The now High Priest Elena, being at the top of the line, has tears that trinkle in farewell. The common belief among the followers is that Chen Bai is returning to the realm of the gods. As he departs, they reflect on what the plague cult truly stands for. They are not worshippers of catastrophe or doom, nor do they embrace corruption or death. The plague isn't their god, but their teacher. Their belief centers on spreading happiness across the earth. Their aim is the harmony and health of people, which is why understanding the plague is essential, so it never harms them again. They vow to remain vigilant, resisting, and promise their god they will one day wield it as a weapon against the demons that terrorize them. As Chen Bai prepares to leave, he hears them affirm that all things destined to perish are, in truth, immortal, Chen Bai's primary slogan. A notification confirming the mission's completion soon appears. He has now received the life and death job change scroll. With the dungeon cleared, Chen Bai looks at the scroll not sure if it's an ability or something different. Leto's mission required viewing 2 SSS scrolls, not just 2 SSS professions. Upon exiting, Chen Bai is welcomed with the news that his factory mission has failed. It seems Puka was not the actual source he was meant to find. It was likely the giant mushroom surrounding him. He chats with Song Zicheng to catch up on what has changed. She talks as if not much time has passed, though 4 days have gone by with the fastest they can go about the city plan. Chen Bai is stunned to realize that his 1.5 years inside the dungeon had compressed into just 4 days outside. He suspects this has to do with the hourglass and its hidden ability. Meanwhile, on Chat 001, Han and others discuss the failure of the chemical factory mission. Chen Bai, curious, Chen Bai checks the pioneer group. Despite the failure, everyone is incredibly supportive. Failure here is treated as a stepping stone. One major highlight is a level 71 saint sacrificing himself for the White Emperor. Before Chen Bai took a look at the group, there had been debates about whether he was even alive with the SSS scroll hunt. Chen Bai reveals the good news about earning the SSS profession scroll. Han is especially pleased and suggests turning the chat box into a league so they can make an official announcement platform that the public can even cite. Although maintaining league status is expensive, it would raise them to the level of a recognized organization. Chenbai likes the idea but insists on a democratic decision. He puts it to a vote in the chat box, deciding its fate based on a 2/3 majority. After everything, Chenbai is exhausted. It feels like 1.5 years of travel have caught up to him. He asks Han to find him a villa. He no longer wants to stay in his cramped apartment. Soon after, Han finds him a secure villa that Chenbai finds suitable for rest. But in the basement, 2 translucent girls are hiding, terrified of intruders. The elder one is even prepared to kill anyone the intruder. Chenbai rests on a bed, realizing the modern world truly is better than the old one. He pulls out his storage and finds the Chinese pillow, noting it's graded D. It's mentioned on the system panel that when he'd sleep on it, it'd actually block out mental attacks. He hadn't known that things brought out of the dungeon could become items. He checks everything from inside: the rare vase, Buddha's relics, the rare coin, Eye of Horrors, and even the Spear of Longinus. The only explanation that makes sense is that he brought these items from before the will of the universe came into effect from a quest. Now the will can recognize them as items. He takes out the Spear of Longinus just to examine it. It's an F-class weapon at this point, though it has the potential to awaken. It rejects filth and demonic beings. Sorum had handed it to Chenbai, thinking it would be something Chenbai would appreciate. Holding the spear feels oddly charming, but once he lets go, he notices his hand has turned red, as though he got them slightly burned. He realizes this is likely because the spear has categorized him as evil, dark, corrupt, abysmal, or filthy. He's certain that if this F-rank spear were S-rank, it would have melted him instantly. Before he can store it again, he hears a sound from outside the door. A knife comes flying at him, which he catches between his index and middle finger, thanks to his fast reflexes. He senses a spiritual being must be behind it, though not a particularly formidable one. He considers using Hellfire to overpower the sneaky evolver but doesn't want to damage the gorgeous villa. Chenbai's viruses typically won't affect spirits. Suddenly, he spots the Spirit Virus series on his skill board, though it's locked. He quickly redistributes his points and unlocks it just in time. As soon as the skill activates, the attacking objects have already stopped. He's curious to see what kind of spirit he's dealing with. He feels 2 spirits and picks up on their intelligent conversation using sensory perception. The younger spirit doesn't want her sister to hurt Chenbai. It's clear these aren't low-level spirits, although attacking with objects is beneath higher-level ones. Chenbai uses psychic perception to get a better understanding. The older spirit is vicious and wants to kill him for barging into their home. Both spirits are S-rank, one evil, one good. The older one is slightly stronger. Suddenly he sees another knife and calls out the spirit's name, Yankee. The younger one begs him not to hurt her sister. Chenbai doesn't intend to harm them, only wants them to listen. The older spirit assumes he's some pervert trying to harass them. Chenbai, however, predicts the older spirit is the perverted one, shutting her up. He wants to ask them questions about recent changes in the world and whether they can still access their evolver panels. It's weird that Chenbai assumes the 2 to be wanderer spirits, to feel their energy release and attempt to mold it into clothing. It's like starting from scratch. The yin absorption and yang gathering energy techniques might prove useful for them both. They soon take things to the next level as we see them in the Red Star Hospital mental hospital dungeon. The good spirit uses her benevolent pacification, while the evil one channels her twisting dark thoughts. Together, they continue mastering their absorption and gathering abilities. The evil spirit wants feedback from Chenbai, who's overseeing their progress. Chenbai clearly senses that she's attempting to plant evil thoughts in his mind. Hearing him see through her, other than the literal sense, she insults him saying that he's evil at his core, which is probably why her powers aren't affecting him. A ding sounds from the chat. It's a message from Meng Meng. Sword Immortal wants to partner up for a secret nightmare dungeon. Others also want to offer their service, or at least nominate people to join, in case there are open slots. Chenbai soon receives the location, Soshin Mountain Path, which means they're in store for a hiking trip. They want Chenbai to specially be a part of it, even though the dungeon rules state that only swordsman immortals can serve as leaders. Chenbai notices there's a level cap of 10. He vaguely recalls not knowing Sword Immortal in his previous life, likely due to bad company, weak allies, and a subsequent early death. Sword Immortal soon explains that the dungeon is tied to their Dragon Nation's traditional cultivation practices. He can only bring a limited number of people, and selecting them carefully honors the culture, explaining why one slot is reserved for Zengsu in advance. Chenbai agrees to join, It's fortunate for Sword Immortal that he's still under the level 10 cap. Chenbai then tells the two spirit girls to wrap things up. Even though he trusts that their moral compasses have shifted, he knows the dungeon boss is a powerful mental user, one they're not ready to face just yet. As the scene shifts, Meng is already waiting with a guy dressed in traditional Japanese clothing. As soon as Chenbai approaches, the man greets him with deep respect. The guy then introduces himself as Zhengsu. Soon, another heavily armed guy enters the frame, clarifying that he's the "I'm not Sword Immortal" guy on the Pioneer chat, Chuzikshun. Chenbai immediately takes note of the impressive number of weapons Chuzikshun carries, all arranged with clever efficiency to maximize weaponry. He's clearly an S-ranker with a specialization in weapons. Chuzikshun is able to channel his mental strength into his sword, transforming his energy into real-time invented new techniques. This steadily enhances his attributes over time. Chenbai acknowledges and praises his unique skill set. Everyone has received the task notification and the details, simply to traverse the path leading up to Sushin Mountain. It doesn't sit right with them. It's an S-rank mission. The path must be difficult, otherwise it wouldn't be presented so simply. As they begin their ascent, Chenbai senses their first hurdle is approaching. Soon, all of them notice a man walking slowly and steadily, chanting in full traditional Japanese attire, hat included. He's chanting in rhythm that all obstacles will arise from the elements of heaven and earth. Chenbai feels the urge to approach and ask what he means, but the faster he moves toward the man, the harder it becomes to catch on. The man just keeps walking, unfazed. Chenbai suspects it's an illusion, though the others believe his poem contains instructions from a guiding illusion. The instructions start to make sense, especially as a strange, thick mist gathers on their path, likely from the water element. Chenbai remains uneasy, sensing that something is about to go wrong. He puts on his biohazard special gloves, ready for any sudden attack. Suddenly, a sharp slash cuts through the mist. Instantly, Chenbai materializes his armor shield, just as a blade nearly pierces through it. Chuzikshun is surprised. His sword intent usually detects threats like this, but this time, it failed. He urges everyone to stay alert. Even Zhengsu's powers can't pick up on it. Chuzikshun hands him a talisman, asking him to manifest and use it. Zhengsu does so, creating a golden light talisman shield around them. Another blade strikes, again aiming directly for Chenbai. Zhengsu warns that the shield won't last much longer. Chenbai senses the pressure and reaches out to touch the tip of the sword slightly embedded in the shield, curious about its intricate design. In moments, it's obvious the sword has been subdued, but it still holds a consciousness of its own. Having tamed it, Chenbai explains to the others that this is no ordinary weapon. It's a level 12 artifact, the Azure Water Dragon Sword, most effective in high humidity. Zhengsu nearly breaks into a sweat, realizing that the golden shield held up for only a split second. Chenbai predicts that this powerful sword, whose strength increases fivefold in the mist, would be better wielded by Chuzikshun. However, when it comes to a sword and its bearer, the bond between them often matters more than logic. Chuzikshun insists that Chenbai keep it as he's the one to tame it. Dreamy shares a prediction. If they're facing obstacles created from the elements of earth and heaven, then they're likely to collect 5 such swords by the end of it all. Unfortunately, Chenbai can only carry 3 swords at the moment. The group moves on, having overcome this challenge. Their morale remains high, especially after witnessing Lord Chenbai's composed and skilled response. Within 10 minutes, the mist fades completely, likely a sign that the water element obstacle is behind them. But that also means they've covered only 1/5 of the journey. Chuzikshun notices the upcoming clutter of unnatural spirit wood. They all begin to feel it. Each tree fiber and every blade of grass carries a hostile presence. This next challenge looks like it won't be handled by one person alone. It seems to require a collective effort. Chuzikshun and Zhengsu discuss how this mission is likely filled with monsters hidden in the grass. They focus on the lyrics of the poem by the old geezer, using it to pick up hints about what they'll face. The mention of a woodcutter creeps Chuzikshun out, but their strategic dialogue is cut short. Before they can fully grasp the situation, it's already resolved. Standing tall atop a heap of chopped wood is Lord White Emperor, Chenbai. He holds 2 swords in his hands, introducing the second elemental sword, the wood sword, also a level 12 item. The 2 boys have comically humiliated expressions on their faces as Dreamy urges them to keep up. They realize they're too slow to even notice when the action happens, or maybe Chenbai is simply too fast. In the distance, the old man continues walking, still chanting the poem about the 5 elements being the obstacles. He adds that rocks and paralysis cliffs might break one down to their very core, hunting the next obstacle. Suddenly, they encounter a heavy sandstone, followed by the earth sword emerging with its attack. Zhengsu prepares to manifest his golden shield, but Meng A advises against it, warning that mobility would be severely limited. Instead, she hands out goggles to protect their eyes from the storm while they gradually move forward. After some time, Zhengsu complains that sand keeps blowing directly into their faces, making it nearly impossible to navigate. Meanwhile, Chenbai has already used his air dash multiple times against the debris and sword attack, blocking so many hazards that he's drained his physical strength. They notice that the real danger comes in the form of powerful blasts of the earth sword following brief vibrations. Their sensory perception is compromised, so Chenbai instructs the crew to focus on those brief tremors. Zhengsu, exhausted and parched, struggles as sand fills his mouth. Eventually, after another warning tremor, they anticipate the sword, consistent with the previous attacks. Thanks to Chenbai's caution, the group deflects it and clears the earth obstacle. They know the earth sword must be nearby. However, Chenbai realizes that the earth sword won't be compatible with the wood and water swords, which work well together. Since he can wield only 3, he decides not to invest his slot in the earth sword. The old man continues chanting, now warning them about the fire spirit sword, which will scorch them until they're dizzy and unable to walk. Soon, signs of this appear. Zhengsu's mouth goes dry, and Dreamy feels utterly drained under the scorching sun. When they complain to Chenbai, he remains calm. He knows the fire spirit sword needs fuel, despair, and weakness to strike. It will attack when the team drops its guard. Just as Zhengsu nears collapse, he sees a pointy object heading for him. Chenbai intercepts it with one of the other swords. By disarming it, he tames the flame spirit sword and claims it as his weapon. He urges the squad to hydrate and move forward to finish this segment of the mission. They soon enter terrain that isn't scorched by sunlight. The old man keeps walking the treacherous path, repeating the poem of the 5 elements being what the obstacles are built upon. He adds the mention of a flash of golden light that can break bodies. Chenbai senses that the golden spirit sword is going to present a combat-focused challenge. He puts on his biohazard gloves once more, confident that taming the fire sword will give him a strong edge moving forward. They now have the territory of the golden spirit sword in sight, a designated area where the sword is already half buried in the ground within what looks like a proper grandeur trial monument. Chuziksun feels a little put off. He notices that the blade isn't fully forged, it's dull and unpolished, and he doubts it could unleash any golden flash. Chenbai, however, doesn't want to overthink it. He simply throws his 3 swords at the golden sword to initiate an attack, and it retaliates. After some fighting, the group notices that the golden sword now appears far more glorious and epic than it did at first. They come to understand that the more damage the sword takes, the more it refines itself, like a form of gold purification. Since the sword's movements are too slow, Chenbai starts using his giant fist ability and begins punching it repeatedly. The others, recalling what Chenbai mentioned earlier, wonder if the refining process is truly endless, whether the sword can continue to enhance itself indefinitely. By the time Chenbai finally claims the sword, it's as thin as a sheet of paper but has immense energy density. He realizes that its stats likely grow in proportion to his stamina depletion, though he still doesn't think the sword has reached its full potential. To test its strength in an unconventional way, he applies continuous pressure until the sword shatters into pieces. In hindsight, despite its appearance and energy, its endurance was disappointingly low. Chenbai feels relieved that he didn't choose this sword over the others. With that concluded, the old man walks past them, remarking that the path ahead is remorseless. He now warns that if they intend to climb the mountain, they might be stepping onto an endless path, one that stretches on indefinitely. The issue is that those lacking true intention and courage in their hearts will find themselves stuck in a pursuit with no end goal. He poetically advises them not to make the journey, warning that all it might lead them to a hollow quest for worthless immortality. Before anything else can happen, a golden lightning strikes down, but instead of hurting our heroes, it descends something on one of their hands, which is a high-level artifact, a map totem. A treasure chest appears in front of them. Zhengsu realizes that this is Chuzikchun's dungeon, and he is the one who will have to be this courageous to move forth. But for the time being, they want to open the treasure chest that just appeared in front of them, along with the special single-owner map totem, worth level 18 to level 89. There is much mystery shrouded in this dungeon, and the dungeon will open up for a single-time use again as well. The reason Chen can longer spend the long time required here is that he has to complete Lord Leto's investment mission as a priority. He cannot risk being at level 10 for long. He'll come back to the Sushin Mountain once he has transferred classes, once he has changed classes. Chuziksun shows his trust in Chenbai by letting him distribute among themselves the items from the treasure chest, where he is happy with the totem already as a prized possession. We move fast forward to Chenbai resting again in the gorgeous villa, quite tired from that dungeon. However, the spirit girls spot and start making fun of him about how weak he is. Chenbai scorns at their audacity, as even in his weakest form, the two cannot take him on, even if they manifest themselves into something immaterial for his attacks to go essentially useless. However, the mean girl thinks he is getting too confident, as she can take him down in his tired state right now within 3 seconds. Chenbai wants to take that bet, putting in one of his skill books that he got from the secret dungeon. If the two can knock him down, it would be theirs to take. As expected, the two reach their limit without even making Chenbai flinch. He hasn't even tried yet. Every now and then, the older spirit slips in remarks that sound like she's flirting with him. Chenbai understands this and brushes them off by changing the topic. Even though the girls fail without landing a single scratch, he still gives them the skill book. They're obviously too drained to actually learn anything at the moment. Chenbai leaves the choice of when to use it up to them and prepares to take his leave. The girls want to know when he'll take them to River City, but he postpones that as he has more pressing matters to deal with for now. Soon, we see Chenbai holding a level S Demon Hunter promotion task scroll, though he's set on acquiring a triple S scroll from the Abyss. Without it, the quest by Lord Leto will forever trap him at level 10. This scroll will transform into a Demon Hunter promotion scroll after success in the Abyss, although Chenbai had no interest in this scroll. But now that he has no other tips on any triple S scrolls, he decides to give this one a try. Moments later, he finds himself in the first layer of the Abyss, surrounded by voices echoing, murmuring whether this new arrival is truly human. The nearby creatures see Chenbai the human aka food, and this atmosphere feels all too nostalgic. In his previous life, when he was promoted to Demon Hunter, Chenbai had taken shelter in this place. It felt like home. Chenbai now sets his mind to not kill 100 fallen demons and 100 lower-level demons, as that's still secondary. His real aim is the Abyss Well. A swarm of a variety of demon types keeps chasing him, no matter how many he defeats. The inability to focus on his main target is more annoying than it is challenging. His irritation is about to increase tenfold. There's an eruption in the Abyss volcano. All the demons gain power, and demon eggs begin to spew out with the lava, about to hatch. More demons, more irritation. Thousands of enemies falling from the sky isn't quite the thrill ride Chenbai usually enjoys. Now Chenbai has to be careful. The first layer of the Abyss is exactly where he wants to stay. If he gets carried away and ends up killing the required number of monsters in the S-ranked scroll while fighting, he'll be moved to another level of the ordinary mission. Suddenly, a demon speaks to him in the demon language. This is Fergus, a level 16 pure-blooded demon, not typically found at this stage of the Abyss. Fergus notes that Chenbai is out of place and refers to him as his dinner. Chenbai thinks Fergus doesn't understand why only the lower-level demons are pursuing him, even though demons like Fergus are always lurking around. Fergus doesn't care much but allows the conversation to continue since they're already speaking in the demon tongue. A chill runs down Fergus's spine when Chenbai casually mentions that he has already eliminated all the unnecessary monsters not part of his S-rank quest, every single one. We never know what became of Fergus, but Chenbai's record suggests it must have been nothing good. We see Chenbai speed up to leave the chasing demons behind. It takes him 6 days to finally reach the Abyssal Well. In his previous life, when he obtained the Demon Hunter job, this was where he had taken refuge, as the first-level demons were too afraid to be near it. After traveling so long, Chenbai decides it's time to rest. By now, most of his storage is filled with B or D-level demon blood samples. As he's analyzing his storage capacity, someone addresses him in the demon language, acknowledging the arrival of a human. The speaker is a level 18 fish demon, a demon prince who has shown up after hearing about Chenbai's bold rampage. He sounds slightly pissed off by how a human dares to cause chaos in the midst of demons. Chenbai knows he cannot afford to disrespect royalty now. He has to be meticulous with killing his grace. The prince fish wields a huge trident wrapped in surges of water, while Chenbai stands in his hellfire armor. Chenbai's father is the lord of the 17th layer of the Abyss. They exchange trash talk, and the fish prince considers the hellfire armor an inferior defense, one that fails to protect him like a proper warrior would. However, Chenbai soon reverses the situation. After narrowly missing an attack, he reveals that he has all 3 of his previously collected swords aimed at the fish prince. In a swift and brutal motion, the swords rush at the fish prince, and the poor fish demon prince falls to a series of stabbings. Moments later, a mask from the incinerator dungeon absorbs the demon blood from the fallen prince. Chen Bai assesses that the demonic essence in his inventory has now reached tens of thousands. The trident he recovers is classified as a C-class weapon. What catches his interest most is its gift of underwater breathing, a feature he values highly. With the fish prince defeated, Chen Bai sets his sights on the abyssal well. Nietzsche's familiar words are echoes in his mind. When one stares into the abyss stares back at one. The well begins to evaluate Chen Bai's credentials. In his previous life, many 10-level warriors ventured to the abyssal well only to retreat, and those who pressed on often never returned. The abyss challenges Chen Bai, measuring his bloodline and low level. It continues to chip away at his confidence with relentless scrutiny. Yet, in the end, the abyss deems Chen Bai's current state sufficient for entry and promises to reward him with a triple S-grade Abyss Overlord class advancement scroll for completing the mission. Now all he has to do is jump into the pit that scares him with just a glance. Without letting fear get the best of him, he jumps in. He's informed that he'll have to face the level 10 projection of every lord, with each layer granting a choice of rest period ranging from 1 second to 1 hour. The projections of lords will be his only opponents, as the abyss itself has no reigning lord. All his equipment and abilities will be fully restored before the abyss quest begins. Chen Bai wonders whether this also means the cooldown of the hourglass, set for 70 years, will reset as well. Despite his qualifications, Chen Bai hopes nothing too unexpected occurs. But soon, the hourglass status appears before his eyes, indicating that he cannot revisit any moment prior to the beginning of the abyss. Upon reaching the bottom, he sees the hourglass reset. This sight fills him with renewed confidence. A massive blade catches his attention. It's the weapon of the inferior demon lord Balheen at level 10. For Chen Bai, the battle truly begins now. He recognizes the demon's traits and realizes it isn't particularly threatening. With all his talents refreshed, Chen Bai goes all in. He clears the first 17 levels with minimal damage. Eventually, he finds himself at stage 66. This stage begins to push him, a challenge he's sensed growing since stage 50. Not even his combat experience from 2 lifetimes compares to the overwhelming experience of the level 10 projection demons, who once instilled terror for an entire generation. During this round, Chen Bai takes a hit to the shoulder even as he drives his blade through his opponent's chest. It's clear he now needs to identify his enemy's weak points instead of relying on instinct. At this point, injury for injury seems like the only path forward. Despite being stabbed straight in the chest, the demon falls back and strikes with its own attack through Chen Bai's body. Chen Bai is stunned, though he barely has the strength left to feel surprise. The demon mocks him, praising his extraordinary human strength only to ridicule him for possessing an equally foolish nature. It states in demonic tongue that the rules at the bottom of the abyss do not allow it to simply accept defeat. Chen Bai, barely holding on, retorts that the demon is overestimating itself while underestimating him. This exchange comes just moments after a notification pops up, confirming that the hourglass has activated, working exactly as intended. It's only because of the demon's arrogance that Chen Bai manages to turn the situation in his favor. After countless grueling stages, he reaches the 100th floor milestone. His final opponent is the projection of a level 10 fallen demon, ironically, the weakest form of demon. Oddly, the demon is nowhere to be seen. Chen Bai doesn't let himself grow overconfident. He doesn't assume the demon is scared of him. The abyss is far too sensitive to rely on such logic. He figures this floor may demand more than brute strength. It may require him to find his opponent first. Just as this thought crosses his mind, his own shadow begins to shapeshift until the demon leaps from behind and ambushes him. He reaches to access his saved status on the hourglass by reflex, and it flashes a message confirming that trackback. The demon decapitates him instantly. It's the second time Chen Bai dies in this trial. He recalls how, on the first floor, after he used his saved status while nearly dying to land the fatal blow, he asked the first floor demon about the adversary on the 100th floor. That demon asked him to go to hell. These projections know they aren't real. They understand they are just shells compared to the no-cap demons, and so they don't fear death. On the contrary, Chen Bai knows that he is real in the night. We see his journey of the 100 floors, where he tries to gather some information. On the 72nd level, he figures out that the lowest category of fallen demon, one that has attributes inferior to even humans, is going to be his adversary soon. However, the demons he has slain so far have been cocky enough to inform him of the 100th demon lord, suggesting that he would be killed by a lowly creature at the end. Turns out that the fallen demon is somewhat of a legend amongst the demon public, known as Lord Gilbert, the one who mastered Shadow Sword Master class with the body of a fallen demon, with his legends extending to even taking care of a demon duke. Fast forward to when he is finally at the 100th floor, the demons weren't totally wrong. Chen Bear does actually get his head chopped off within moments in. Chen Bai realizes that the one-hit kill ability is one of his major troubles. This demon uses shadows to morph into unleashing surprises and deceptions that Chen Bai is still unaware of. This demon's credentials are equivalent to a third advancement evolver, being an S-class rating. It is unnatural to make comparisons. According to the attributes, Chen Bai is head and shoulders above a fallen demon. However, compared to the Shadow Master technique, Chen Bai has no advantage at all. Chen Bai has learned that he must remain on the move, weary of his own shadow, and while he is at it, he should also spread some viruses around, just in case the demon will follow him and get infected. The complete draining of his energy from the 99 floors is one thing, but his body moving around involuntarily every now and then frustrates him on a completely different level. He has to keep checking the hourglass saved status to restore his strength. Suddenly, a bright light shines, and Gilbert descends from above, launching an attack on Chen Bai. He informs him that he should seize this moment. He has won. The infection has already reached Gilbert, and due to the restrictions of the Abyss, he can't use his full power against Chen Bai. Gilbert reminds him that he'll always be waiting on the 100th floor, and once Chen Bai completes the Abyss, he can return to face the full might of Lord Gilbert. Even now, Gilbert senses that while Chen Bai has managed to clear the well so far, he might not succeed in clearing the entire thing in his current state. Still, there's an odd sense of sportsmanship between the two, as Gilbert lets him choose his rest time after finishing the 100th mission. It isn't long before our hero reaches the Abyss's 200th layer, standing before a magnificent palace. He addresses Lord Elmira, the fallen angel, and asks if she has summoned him for the trial challenge. The fallen angel actually plans to let him pass without a fight. It's too much of a hassle for her. Still, she's curious about the man who has come so far. Given his credentials, she doubts he truly made it to the 200th level. What really catches her interest is that even after facing someone like Gilbert and surviving, the ones who followed weren't exactly jokes either. Chen Bai, now seated, refers to it as a trade secret, something a magician must never reveal to the audience. Elmira isn't trying to rob him of his secret. She's just been unbearably bored, so uninterested in everything that she even invites him in for a glass of wine before allowing him to move forward. Chen Bai doesn't want to turn down a beautiful fallen angel like her. He asks what she wants to know and offers to tell her about any layer she's curious about. After thinking for a while, she brings up the nasty 105th Lord in the swamp level. Chen Bai admits Cerubis was quite the formidable foe. His absorption ability, the fleshy surface that devoured half of him on the first touch, had been a real hassle. Elmira wants to know how he managed to take down such a foul creature. Chen Bai explains it in a way so simple and obvious, it's almost funny. He made Cerubis overeat until he poisoned himself with all the arms and supplies thrown at him. In the end, the demon reduced to a puddle of sludge from his former glory. Chen Bai hadn't been joking about feeding him arms. He literally tore off his own arm again and again, regenerating it each time just to poison the Lord. She then asks about the one who hides in the sea. His first encounter with the creature's grandson, where he went after the trident, was the key moment that shaped that entire battle. She seems both amused and intrigued by his bizarre tactics, and follows up by asking about the girl on the 153rd layer, one who had no loopholes he could exploit. Chen Bai remembers being killed by her 15 times in a row before finally figuring her out. He admits his virus had no effect against her extreme heat. The girl had been genuinely strong. Her lava body and clever use of camouflage had been an absolute nightmare. Every time she got injured, she'd retreat into the lava and heal herself. It had taken him 5 days to find a way to defeat her. The key was to wear down her heat reserves. Still, she remains the most difficult opponent out of the 200 layers. The 186th Lord in the rotting pit may have been just as strong, but Chen Bai waves her off. That one had just been plain out filthy, surrounded by rotting corpses and excitement, and oddly comfortable in all of it. Who cares about her strength? That lady was the definition of the word grotesque. Makes sense why no lord has tried to take over her floor. Elmira expresses that Chen Bai hasn't taken a single sip from the glass in front of him. Of course he wouldn't. He knows it's a product of her mind energy poison. He's certain of it because he has already died once from drinking it. The hourglass continues to be his most reliable, trusty lifeline in the Abyss. Eventually, it becomes clear that Elmira does, in fact, want to take him down. But doing so would require more than just mental manipulation. She'd have to stand up and fight. Chen-bai feels a rush of anticipation at the thought of battling someone of her caliber, but Elmira, with an air of indifference, tells him she's far too lazy, which completely deflates his excitement. His face falls with such a disappointment that it's comically hilarious. She may not want to fight, but she does warn him to stay alert. In the layers ahead, he might face 3, no 6, divine title holders, projections designed to drain energy. With that, Chen-bai selects a 1-hour recovery period. He needs the time to figure out how to deal with 6 divine title holders, each one wielding the authority of a rule, without relying on the perks of the hourglass. All Chen-bai can hope is that their authority isn't over-erasing him, as there is no coming back. If erasing is out of the way, he can take on anyone, even gods, as the hourglass will do its trick each time. We hear a voice by Salisbury, the one-eyed demon, congratulating Chen-bai sarcastically. Chen-bai has made it to the 235th level, into the wilderness, and is occupied by an illusion dream. Salisbury is actually really curious about what the boy who traveled through 235 levels could be dreaming about. He sees someone bowing down to Chen-bai as he is sitting on a throne with his harem girls around him. Heloise bows down, pleading for the Lord's mercy and promising to serve the Divine Lord as either a slave or servant, considering it her greatest honor. Salisbury notices that Chen-bai remains unmoved, displaying utter disdain for the goddess. Chen-bai even offers her damnation if she surrenders and dies. Heloise appears incredibly submissive and weak, begging for her life and swearing eternal loyalty. Chen-bai knows loyalty is a concept foreign to her, but spares her life nonetheless, giving her a dog chain and telling her to tie herself to the gate. The embarrassment, shame, and condescension show clearly on the goddess's face as she reluctantly accepts it. Chen-bai is more amused than ever. Salisbury observes that Chen-bai does know how to enjoy himself, but laments that he must now take Chen-bai's soul. As Salisbury approaches, one of the swords intercepts and attacks him. It becomes clear that Chen-bai was warned beforehand that seeing through Salisbury's illusion is the only way forward. He holds the upper hand. The swords possess their own consciousness, and Chen-bai cannot sense them within the dream. Salisbury did not consider the overwhelming presence of a goddess on a mortal, despite his attempts. Perhaps his level 10 limitation is the cause, but all this implies the swords could have defeated Salisbury long ago, and this encounter was merely a way to toy with him. Chen-bai has no intention of dishonoring a demon like Salisbury. He only wants to rest after completing nearly 250 floors of the abyss, utterly exhausted. It's revealed Chen-bai has endured nearly 1,000 resets to restore his physical abilities. While he can restore his statistics, the mental strain, conspiracies, and deceit remain uncompensated. He feels a deep gratitude towards Salisbury, believing that without this level, he would have lost the will to continue. Moreover, Salisbury's challenge reminded him of his true purpose, the intense contempt fueling his journey through this ordeal. He is no longer a madman exhausting himself on endless floors. Salisbury feels anger toward Chen-bai but acknowledges his defeat and accepts that Chen-bai has fulfilled his purpose. He informs Chen-bai that only a few floors remain and that Chen-bai has done the most work. Chen-bai inquires how many floors are left, and Salisbury tells him it's just a few short of 300, most of which are empty. This unsettles Chen-bai. Salisbury's probably in the dark about empty levels still requiring him to bust his butt. The Abyssal essentially summons the former lord of that floor to fight Chen-bai. For example, the demon on the 205th level is the same as the one on the 92nd, as that smoke demon had previously ruled the 92nd level. Chen-bai has seen 3 such pairs of floors. Chen-bai initially assumes Salisbury is inexperienced, but Salisbury clarifies that he's mentioning only those floors have been utterly reduced to dust and nothingness. Intense battles often cause destruction deep into the levels, which is quite common. Chen-bai expresses gratitude towards Salisbury and promises to visit him for a no-holds-barred battle after the trial concludes. Now rejuvenated, once Chen-bai clears the 235th level and must choose his rest time, he opts for just 1 second of break. After this level, several floors have collapsed, and he skips ahead to the 279th level, bypassing 44 floors. This level holds a special condition: to navigate a maze and find Baphomet, the bull demon lord. Chen-bai recognizes Baphomet as the deity of the Minotaurs, one of the 6 true gods Elmira mentioned. Chen-bai soon finds himself in a blood-carpeted, dimly lit maze. These first 200 floors were tough, but he is in for the real thing now. Chen-bai is informed that intruders within the labyrinth are attacked, so Chen-bai is on his toes. Just as he is thinking about that, he sees a giant man-bull behind him going for a punch. He is able to sense the attack and manifest his forearm shield just in time to intercept the Minotaur's wrath. The Minotaur cannot get past the defenses, and Chenbai transforms his arm into a blade to take the Minotaur down. Although it seems like it's dead, the body is being taken in by the ground, and before he can lay another punch to make sure he is done with it, the Minotaur has already disappeared. So basically this was a blood clone whom the maze absorbed. These blood clones are essentially the consequences of intruding. Chenbai has heard of Baphomet, but the Beast Sovereign's information is limited to a few rumors. He realizes he'll have to learn his way through the maze. A few minutes later, he finds himself once again face to face with another Minotaur blood clone, taking a hit from its horns. He notices that its strength has increased since before. This time, it's classified as a level 2 hazard. For the first time, Chenbai is able to observe its innate abilities, such as the gladiator god's battle thirst, meaning the Minotaur can grow 5 times stronger if it enjoys the fight. After landing a punch, Chenbai suddenly manifests earth spikes and brings the Minotaur down. We catch glimpses of Chenbai going deeper into the maze as Baphomet's level rises. Level 4, Level 5. Chenbai begins to take more hits. He's now engaged in fighting Baphomet's clones for far longer intervals. He eventually ventures deep enough to anticipate facing a level 10 Baphomet. There's visible shakiness in his body, which is only natural, but he doesn't want to let it overwhelm him this far into the abyss. A clear pattern is in play. Each time he fights, he faces a higher level. He is already up against a level 7, and the spiritual gap has become too vast. He can't even use his spiritual perception to determine the exact attributes of the Minotaur clone. All he can predict, based on intuition, is that this Baphomet clone is nearly twice as powerful, with twice the attributes, as Chenbai. At this rate, using the virus to take it down would be too slow of a process. He asks himself what he can do other than grabbing more information. We see him coming back to the main entrance, and this time thinking about experimenting. He thinks he won't kill the lower-level clones this time. He has obviously been resetting, as he is seen running through the place where the level 2 Baphomet was, and eventually to the level 7 Baphomet location with nothing to be seen. However, this seems just too simple to be true. When suddenly, he's jumped by a clone from above. The speed is too great for Chenbai to even conveniently have used the hourglass status this time. That guy just then was obviously a level 8 or higher Baphomet clone that he just managed to beat. Chenbai has used this information to make sense. There can basically be only one Baphomet in the maze that can exist at a time. If he's able to kill the monster, he will face successive difficult versions of the clone. However, if he goes around rushing into the deeper part of the maze, the clone will eventually chase him down, with gradual growth in rank and level as deep as Chenbai has gone. Chenbai concludes one advantage that he has if his hypothesis is correct. He can use his virus on the monster from the get-go, and then lead it deep into the maze to have a stealth-wise advantage on it. Chenbai needs to be very careful as there is a statistics boost every time he faces the next level of Baphomet, so he needs to have his own statistics at their very best. He reallocates his points to harness the mental worm ability, which can transform Chenbai's spiritual power into a worm that can infect his adversaries. This would eventually drop the statistics and mental control of the enemy, leading to emotional tantrums and shenanigans that would cause depression for the foe, eventually leading to self-destruction. This is quite a useful skill he can use. This skill probably appeared after he had started using telekinesis. The negative emotions and self-deteriorating means that Baphomet's initial innate skill, where his bloodlust and thirst can improve his statistics, would be vulnerable. He now believes he can kill the divine Minotaur god. It's showtime. Chenbai moves swiftly as the level 1 Baphomet appears before him. He lands only a single blow, barely enough to scratch the divine god clone, and moves forward in dazzling fashion. But he has a better idea. He grabs it by the horn and starts dragging it along with him as far as he can until the Minotaur manages to break free. By this point, it's already coughing. Its basic stats begin to drop, and it's struggling to breathe. The notification window confirms that the worm is now fully active, already causing emotional disturbances. Chenbai can tell that leveling up hasn't restored his energy as much as it would have without the infection. About an hour later, he finds himself at the center of the maze, waiting for the real thing to arrive. He spots the monster approaching from the air but holds back, hoping it levels up a bit more before he strikes. Baphomet is now at level 9. Chenbai morphs his blade, preparing to meet the incoming attack from the Minotaur god clone with one of his own. But as soon as he uses his forearm blade, the clone blocks it, leveling up to 10. The stats boost is significant, likely allowing it to grow faster than the worm can consume it. At level 10, it gains the indestructible body attribute. Its vitals can never drop below a certain threshold. Still, Chenbai senses an advantage. especially when the Minotaur god suggests not fighting. There's a deep sense of depression and self-doubt in its voice, and Chen Bai intends to exploit it. He suggests that if fighting is truly meaningless, then the god clone should let him go. But before Baphomet can even think, or before Chen Bai can fully manipulate him, Baphomet is already lying down, visibly depressed, as though confessing to a therapist about where his life went wrong. All he's ever done is prepare for war, even destroying 44 levels of the Abyss in the name of battle. Now he's unsure what it was all for, whether battle blood was even his big purpose. It's a full-blown midlife crisis for an eternal god. Chen Bai appears as a helper, even offering to put him out of his misery. But it wouldn't matter. Inside the maze, Baphomet can be reborn endlessly with full strength. The same applies to Chen Bai and his retracking ability. Chen Bai has to play therapist as doubt seeps through Baphomet's voice, asking whether he's too twisted for him. Chen Bai senses that the Minotaur god has lost all grasp on sanity. Chen Bai's glad he didn't go through with the consensual suicide. If he had killed the Mentor god, the trial would have reset with a wormless Minotaur, and he would have been eliminated instantly in a crazy rampage. He has brought Baphomet to a place where fighting no longer appeals to him, where he wants Chen Bai to walk over him and reflect on the meaninglessness of everything he's done so far, what living truly means. Later, in the resting space, Chen Bai rethinks how terrifying Baphomet could have been with the level 10 attribute. But the point is, he has dealt with the first god. Fast forward, he's on level 350 now. He's warned that this is the most spacious floor of the entire Abyss. It holds the fabric of space itself, home to the eyes of the Abyss, which he can spot as swirling black energy and purple light columns connecting them. As the level initiates, Chen Bai is thinking about the warm, his mental warm skill, which he's grateful for, having only used his backtrack 3 times since level 279. He waits for the notification panel to reveal the lord of this level. It's the Devourer of Worlds, the Serpent Demon Lord. The condition is to pass the 9-headed trial. Chen Bai feels it will be fatal, another god-level opponent. This is the 9-headed devouring serpent god, a figure of legend. One of its heads turns toward him, immediately spotting him. The head, clearly female, compliments his appearance. Chen Bai returns the compliment, flattering her with ease. She doesn't want to test him further. He has already passed her trial. Chen Bai bows to the goddess. She then goes to awaken the 8th head for its trial. This one turns out to be as lazy as they come, asking him a simple arithmetic question. What's 1 plus 1, resembling the laziness of the fallen angel Elmira. Next comes the aesthetic head, uninterested and disengaged. Before things move forward, number 5 and 6 interrupt, wanting to go first. These are the elemental controller devourers. One rules over water, the other over fire. They're locked in a debate over which is superior, water or fire, and demand that Chen Bai resolve the matter. Chen Bai must choose so wisely that both heads are happy. Disappointing either means fatal consequences. Poor Chen Bai's stuck in a no-win situation. Agreeing or disagreeing with either means death. To top it off, they seem to be very impatient heads of the serpent god, with each of them emphasizing how seemingly simple and logical each of their trials is. In such a case, the one thought that goes through Chen Bai's mind is to kill one of them. Number 2 watches on as the two fools have put a mere mortal in a situation where he can simply not take any side. Chen Bai decides this is it, going for the kill. As he moves to strike one of them, Chen Bai isn't able to connect. However, number 2's point does go through and isn't unheard of by number 5 and number 6. They think that their trials are each totally perfect. 5 soon comes to his senses, realizing that their trial is exactly ensuring that he loses at least one trial. He's in an all-lose situation. Despite everything that occurred, there is a comical relief on Chen Bai's face. It is weird how the Devourer gods' heads are kind enough to overlook Chen Bai's attempt of murder, with 5 and 6 dismissing each of their trials without pushing him into a confirmed doom situation. Chen Bai considers how childish they are. Chen Bai suggests that fighting with arguments can be avoided by competing against each other. The two are, however, smart enough to know what not to do. They are, after all, a single entity. Killing one's own self is basically suicide, and they know that. Chen Bai thinks that since the godheads have assembled for the trial, their animosity, paired with the confidence each holds, one claiming the power to dry the other out, while the other insists on flooding and extinguishing its rival, can finally be tested, since death holds no weight in this trial combat. Chen Bai has given them a reason to ponder something they had never considered before. The two then start trash-talking. However, number 1 steps in and orders them to settle their dispute after the trial concludes. They both call him their elder brother and listen to his words. Number 4 now believes it's their turn. asking Chen Bai about the blue star. From the beginning of the universe, he had wandered aimlessly through the vast space until this trial thing happened. Number 4 basically wants to know a story from the blue star to make sense of what life on it truly is. Number 7, who finds this a beautiful and aesthetic request, considers that this can be his trial as well. Number 4 and number 7 listen diligently. Meanwhile, number 2 finds this perfect time to ask about his domain of interest. Number 2 likes to think and asks Chen Bai about philosophers of Blue Star and their words of wisdom. Number 3 is becoming impatient. As the rest of them have asked long, narrative-based stories and philosophies from the boy, this one seems to be the bully. His frustration seems to grow, and he wants to take the anger out on Chen Bai, creating a giant orb of energy in its mouth, going for the attack on Chen Bai, calling it his first ability since the trial began. Chen Bai is amazed seeing and hearing about the devouring skill that the head can come up with since the trial began. He truly believes in the divinity of this god. The sucking power is incredible, even though the flying speed of the orb is quite slow. Number 3 asks Chen Bai to take it head-on if like a man. Chen Bai uses telekinesis to first control it and block it as well, but he cannot handle the power of devouring that way. His black light virus is nothing compared to the power of devouring. The black light virus can only eat flesh and blood. Chen Bai has only one chance. Number 2 notes what he is doing. He can use his regenerative energy to feed the orb while he retreats at exactly the speed the orb is moving towards him, creating a stalemate where the orb eats the same mass of regenerative limb that his total body weighs. Our number 3 feels that he cannot block his energy, but announces that once it has failed its capacity, the orb will basically blow up, releasing 3 times the explosive power that it has devoured. Number 9 cannot bear watching. However, somehow Chen Bai manages to escape the explosion in time. Technically, Chen Bai was supposed to satisfy each head's trial, and he has satisfied number 3's wish of taking the devouring orb head-on. However, he hasn't stopped having fun, and manifests another advanced devouring orb in his mouth before number 2 scolds him for misbehaving. With his trial being done, the 3rd head now regrets not using the improved version of the devouring sphere from the get-go. Now that number 3 is out of the way, the 3 snake heads want their story, philosophy, and aesthetic value. Chen Bai kills 3 birds with 1 stone, expressing human history and its philosophy. And now it's time for number 1's trial. Number 1, however, doesn't want to test him. Instead, he puts Chen Bai on the spectator seat. Number 6 and number 5 are going to go head-on, and if Chen Bai can wait out their fight, he can leave. Chen Bai's totally okay with it. He feels that the trials were basically rigged by the laziness of the serpent. He's still skeptical about whether this is the end of things, or whether it was just a facade. He thinks that for the time being, what's best for him is to create some separation between him and the gods, so that he doesn't get caught in the crossfire. It's done and dusted. Number 5 beats number 6. There's a lot of tension between the two, but it's something quite normal for them. Number 6 does seem to struggle after losing. Number 3 intervenes with his impatience again, asking them to settle down, pointing out that they let the human off far too easily. He's already pissed off about that, and if that's not enough, 5 and 6 can't stop, even after having a decisive winner. Number 4 thinks that this was an investment rather than something stupid. They bring no loss to themselves by letting the boy go. Number 4 notes that since Chen Bai was able to beat Baphomet, he has a chance to clear the abyss and become the Lord of the Abyss. The dynamics would surely favor them if the Lord of the Abyss owes them a favor. Number 3 can see reason in this, but he believes there's no chance Chen Bai can clear the abyss. The wolf god on the 375th floor is ruthless, with the authority to assassinate. The authority to assassinate that guy is truly sinister from the core, with his ability to stealth at will. There's no way Chen Bai can go through, or at least that's what number 3 thinks. We flash forward to Chen Bai already getting to the 375th level. He's up against the assassin, the assassination god, the wolf. And as sharp as he is, he knows that this particular level is going to be quite challenging. Chen Bai has been relying on his clever tactics and stealth so far, but a stealthy assassination is the worst thing Chen Bai knows how to deal with. One strike deciding everything is something that can get the best of him without even a fair shot. Suddenly, as he's walking, something gets a hold of his foot and turns and sweeps him to an upside-down position. Chen Bai is able to land on his arms and then on his back to his feet. As soon as he does, he sees a giant net with explosives attached to it trying to get hold of him. Chen Bai hasn't even seen the enemy yet. We hear cracking and realize that Chen Bai was able to escape the range of the explosion, but every time Chen Bai seems to get on his 2 feet again, there's some new trap. This time, grabbing his hand, Chen Bai is fed up and frustrated and uses hellfire to free himself. Chen Bai mockingly announces that the assassination wolf god should be called the trap wolf god, calling him a sneaky bastard. The wolf god shows himself, announcing himself and taking that as a compliment from Chen Bai. Before Chen Bai can make sense, a very quick, sudden attack from above kills him, only for time to backtrack and revive him. Chen Bai has measured the situation, and the odds are not in his favor. The assassination god, Yanugu, has all the statistics and attributes surpassing his, with an unlimited number of traps in pursuit of him and strength that he has no idea how to prepare for. His only bet is to release viruses in advance so that while the wolf god is scouting for him, he can face Chen Bai's traps instead. All it would take to blow holes in the invincibility is to infect Yanugu. Since then, he will be able to detect him and slowly weaken him. He figures out that this time, after the track back, he should handle the traps by going for a ground-wide attack, exposing all the traps to him at once. He lets his earth spikes out, learning about a variety of traps, some much more deadly than others. In fact, he counts that there are 100 traps within a few dozen meters, with utter genius demonstrated for each trap being unique in its own way. His train of thought is stopped by the wolf announcing that Chen Bai's infecting the wolf is one thing, but his cleverly developed plan of traps being destroyed like that is something he takes personally as an attack. And suddenly, something pierces Chen Bai's chest before he uses backtracking to revive himself. Chen Bai realizes that the wolf, Yanugu, has been around him this whole time, knowing everything. He's only left to question what methods he can employ, because nothing he has ever done is helping him out at this point. We can see multiple death sequences of Chen Bai at the hands of Yanugu, and we can see him use the backtracking over and over again until he has used it for the 8th time. The problem is that even though the strength is nothing compared to Baphomet, it's still 3 times more than Chen Bai's, and that isn't even the biggest problem. If he wants to instill viruses, the wolf kills him way before the stats can drop to something substantial. Even the worm doesn't hinder him in time. In his mind, he thinks that spreading the flu first and then letting the mental worm do its stuff is the only way he can hope to gain something. He can then use Yanugu's traps to weaken him and grow. Chen Bai soon utilizes this technique in real time, finally seeing some difference. Chen Bai needs to scout the area to be maximally aware of the booby traps set by Yanugu to lay out one perfect attempt. Once the wolf's statistics are comparable to his, he can surely do something. As he is moving to scout the booby traps, he has angered the wolf once again, and this is his 10th attempt. However, this time there is a smile on Chen Bai's face. Each time he uses the backtrack, he can move further back, learn more. He feels that it is just in his craft to take out Yanugu. We soon see him in his 15th attempt, trapped in shackles, then 20, then his 23rd attempt, dying less conveniently now. He is now purposefully trying to anger the god, as his hastiness is what's going to cost him. As he is thinking, the wolf is walking through its own traps at quite a high velocity, landing a punch on Chen Bai. But Chen Bai, even though injured, realizes that his strength is only twice as much as Chen Bai's now, a 33% decrease. Seeing this, the wolf has made it a purpose to not care about the traps and walk through them, aiming to kill our hero ASAP. This is proving to be advantageous for Chen Bai. Every time the wolf tries to attack in this attempt with time, there is a stalemate point where Chen Bai can sense that the wolf's statistics aren't fatal to him anymore. Where the traps have already made Yanugu vulnerable, Chen Bai can now retaliate. Among many traps and earth spikes, Chen Bai is able to intercept the wolf with one of his arm blades. Finally, after this long conquest to take down the stealth god, Chen Bai can finally take a sigh of relief. Yanugu's floor has been cleared. Chen Bai is totally psyched about this win. In its final moment, Yanugu's stats were still greater than his, but he wasn't thinking with his mind anymore. Instead, the Wolf Lord was implementing instincts based on bloodlust. As it's obvious, without sneaking up on someone, the wolf's combat sucks, certainly not being as sharp as his stealth. In the resting area, Chen Bai realizes that the bonus he got from the plague won't work anymore. The suit has received too much damage, and it's not as durable or invincible as it once was. While only 3 of the 6 gods remain, Chen Bai remembers something that Heloise had told him once. The succubus queen Macanthute, who is around floor number 400. She has many titles: the Empress of Pleasure, the Whipmaster. Apparently, even Heloise seems to fear her. With all of this on his mind, Chen Bai is already on the 400th floor, but instead of Macanthute, this floor has an army of the undead. Chen Bai figures out that this is going to be the easiest floor, other than the Serpent's Trial. He has his possessed swords ready, with biochemical disaster at his disposal. He lets his swords do the talking while he stands there, acquiring statistics and attribute points passively. Chenbai has one clear motive for this level, to push his stats into 4 digits, and that's all he focuses on. He uses his swords for most of the fighting, though attacks come flying at him every now and then. Still, that's not the end of his troubles. Though protected by a psychic shield, one particular lord manages to throw attacks right through it. One such strike barely misses him. Chenbai blocks it at close range. His psychic energy has no buffs, and the enemy's psychic spear is powerful. Suddenly, he leaps straight toward the boss's heart. The lord is stunned. He hadn't expected Chenbai to detect and locate him while invisible. Admitting that Chenbai isn't particularly strong but tends to make the right decisions, the enemy realizes Chenbai has already used backtracking twice against this pope-like figure. And of course, Chenbai makes the right call again, defeating Lord Gaber. He intends to leave, but Gaber expresses a desire to see him once more. Chenbai is warned. Macanthute is waiting for him. Moments later, we find ourselves in a lavish bedroom. This is floor 437, home to the succubus queen of pleasure, Macanthute. She sits up and greets the walker of the abyss. Chenbai acknowledges her beauty and almost falls for her charms before snapping back to his senses. Macanthute enjoys Chenbai's temptation. Seeing Chenbai slip, she invites him closer, claiming there's no point in suppressing one's desires. She guides him not to hold back as his emotions begin to surface. She extends her tongue out, not holding back on the seduction part, and asks Chenbai to kneel and kiss her toes, as she wants to mark him with her whip as her pet thing. She tells him to call her master. It's clear she's turning seduction into a weapon against poor old Chenbai. But she is a goddess here, and there's no straightforward way out of this. Macanthute offers to make him her pet, saying well-behaved pets receive extraordinary rewards. Chenbai finds himself nearly unable to refuse. Macanthute acknowledges that while all men are the same, Chenbai has resisted her longer than any before him. A flashback takes us to Heloise teaching Chenbai how to control his desires when encountering a succubus. She tells him about the succubus who resides in the abyss. Before inheriting the authority of desire, this succubus once admired a man who went mad with worship once she became the pleasure goddess. His foolish and obsessive behavior disappointed her and humiliated all men in her eyes. As Heloise shares this, Chenbai realizes that the goddess of desire is a true succubus. Heloise, amused, wonders what would happen if she unleashed her full charm on him. She has a habit of testing those she fancies, seducing them fully to see how foolish they become in response. Chenbai, aware of Heloise's belief in him back then, tries to assure her it wouldn't be like that. Heloise, who believes he would never kneel to anyone and would rather stay empty-handed than to beg, hears him say he would gladly kneel for capable people, like her. Now, in the present, Chenbai cringes at the memory and despises his former self. Without hesitation, Chenbai charges directly at the goddess. She uses her infamous whip she has been controlling with her mind to block Chenbai's attack, then restraining him, binding his limbs tightly with the whip. Still playful, she reminds him that the only way he'll ever have her is by kneeling down and begging. But Chenbai understands exactly what her game is, and makes it clear to her he will never beg a woman to get in bed with her. She laughs lightly and plays with him a bit more, saying she's lonely, and a dog like him could be useful to have around. The whip flash restraining him is only bound around his upper body, but for some reason, he cannot move his entire structure. Plus, there are barbs on the whip that have started to itch. He finds this really bad. Macanthute calls this the punishment whip of love and restrained desire. She tells him it's quite the instrument, perfect for controlling those who are desperate to relieve themselves. At this point, Chenbai decides to bluff and begins to trash-talk the goddess, brushing off her technique as mediocre to say the very least. He points out that it's actually her who's begging him to beg, calling her methods mid. He insults her to level up or move aside. Macanthute understands what's wrong. The boy hasn't fallen fully under her seduction because she hasn't actively cast her charm on him yet. Chenbai continues trash-talking her as she slowly moves closer and suddenly kisses him. Her method of ceremonious seduction of casting the charm. Chenbai's eyes turn pale. Reality begins to blur, and he finds himself drifting into another plane of consciousness. He can hear himself confess that if he were to truly face Macanthute, he might never resist her overwhelming control and authority. Suddenly, Heloise appears before him, straight from one of their past conversations. He recalls her words, that the voice of reason doesn't always need to win. Sometimes, knowing when to pull out is reason enough to let oneself relax. Whatever that slimy traitor meant is the crap of her own mind, but this memory reignites something in Chenbai. He reminds himself that the virus's reproductive urge is ultimately the strongest. Without warning, he manifests his blacklight virus armor, shatters the whip, and pushes Mechanthud away. For the first time, Mechanthud is visibly seen baffled and angry. She doesn't understand what went wrong. She commands the power of desire. It should have erased Chenbai's will to fight. Yet this mortal, this unusually captivating man, not only resisted her but broke her whip. Suddenly he appears behind her and holds her tightly. His virus armor grooves tease her like the barbs on her own whip tease her victims. She realizes that the only way out is to kill him. But in that moment she hesitates. Why would she want to kill someone who overcame her temptation so completely? Chenbai senses that the goddess has stopped resisting. She's ready. He vows that he'll be relentless. 3 days of intense battle pass. Chenbai emerges victorious. Whatever strange encounter this floor held between Mechanthud and Chenbai, the system panel now confirms that he has cleared the level. Mechanthud, left with her thoughts, reflects that this may have only been her projection. Still, her experience with Chenbai feels more vivid than anything before. For a second there, she almost considers ascending to the 500th floor to confront that cursed deity, but quickly comes to her senses. She knows she's no match for the Lord of the Night. As much as she wishes Chenbai could become a god, so she could feel again what she felt over those 3 days, it's something she can't control. Meanwhile, Chenbai realizes he has defeated 5 of the 6 gods: the Minotaur, the Hydra, the Golden Wolf, the Undead, and Mechanthud. He wonders who the final one will be. Chenbai is now down to the 500th level of the Abyss after 1 hour of rest time. Suddenly someone speaks to Chenbai, congratulating him on reaching the final trial. This proves that his deeds are already legendary. However, the voice of this god with bat-like wings and horns declares that Chenbai will never become a true legend, as his journey is destined to end here. Chenbai has no interest in exchanging words with Lord Agaris. He wants a direct flight. Since the Dark Night is the element of Lord Agaris, Chenbai can't see him. He activates his psychic vision and heat-tracking abilities to keep the Lord of Night within his sights. Unfortunately, none of these skills help. No matter what he tries, he can't locate Lord Agaris. Chenbai figures he'll need to die a few times to grasp Agaris' game. But then something unexpected happens. Before he can break down his upcoming deaths into a manageable strategy, a notification appears on his system panel. It reports that the 500th floor has been cleared. What's more is that instead of declaring the Abyss completed, the system prompts him to select a recovery time. This leaves Chenbai completely bamboozled.